भीम, जय भीम। आज के इस राष्ट्रीय सम्मेलन में जो भारतीय संविधान के भारतीय संविधान के 75 वर्षों के दौरान सामाजिक और आर्थिक न्याय का जो असेसमेंट है उस पे हम बैठे हैं कि इस राष्ट्रीय सम्मेलन में भारतीय संविधान में पिछले 75 वर्षों में जो सामाजिक आर्थिक न्याय की दिशा में जो प्रयास हुए उसका एक आकलन करने में हम सब लोग एक राष्ट्रीय सम्मेलन आयोजित कर रहे हैं सेंटर फॉर दलित स्टडीज की ओर से। और इसमें बहुत से भागीदार संगठन हैं, उनमें रोजा लक्समबर्ग साउथ एशिया का एक फाउंडेशन है, इंडियन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ दलित स्टडीज, सेंटर फॉर दलित स्टडीज, सेंटर फॉर दलित राइट्स, नेशनल अलायंस फॉर सोशल जस्टिस, दलित कोलिशन, पीपल्स कैंपेन फॉर सोशियो-इकोनॉमिक इक्विटी, दलित बहुजन फ्रंट। तो ये जो तमाम भागीदार संगठन हैं, इन सब के सौजन्य से, इनके सबके मार्गदर्शन में आज का ये राष्ट्रीय सम्मेलन हो रहा है। आप सबका स्वागत है इस राष्ट्रीय सम्मेलन में। मैं सुखदेव विश्व प्रेमी हिमाचल प्रदेश से हूँ। पीपल्स कैंपेन फॉर सोशियो इकोनॉमिक इक्विटी के नाम से एक अभियान 2007 में शुरू हुआ था, उसका प्रतिनिधि हूँ। और वहाँ एक स्टेट कोलिशन है, स्टेट कोलिशन फॉर लेजिस्लेशन ऑफ शेड्यूल कास्ट शेड्यूल ट्राइब सब प्लान के लिए एक आदरणीय लक्ष्मैया जी के मार्गदर्शन में एक कैंपेन शुरू किया है, उसका मेंबर हूँ। हम आज के इस कॉन्फ्रेंस में इस सत्र में स्वागत करते हैं आदरणीय श्री लक्ष्मैया जी का, जो चेयरपर्सन है, चेयरमैन है सेंटर फॉर दलित स्टडीज के। उनका इस कॉन्फ्रेंस में स्वागत है और उनसे गुजारिश है कि वो मंच पे आएं। आदरणीय लक्ष्मैया जी, जिनके रहनुमाई में आज ये पूरे देश का एक ऐसा इंस्टीट्यूशन है जो बिल्ड हुआ है, और हम लोगों को सौभाग्य मिला है कि आज सेंटर फॉर दलित स्टडीज़ के इसका पहला सम्मेलन हो रहा है इस नया परिसर में। इनका स्वागत है। हमारे मुख्य अतिथि हैं आदरणीय जस्टिस सुदर्शन रेड्डी जी, इनका भी स्वागत है। रेड्डी साहब को हमने पिछले दिनों जो संविधान की 75वीं वर्षगांठ की एक व्याख्यान माला शुरू की गई, उस दौरान जस्टिस महोदय को हमने सुना। आपका स्वागत है। हमारे बीच में प्रोफेसर कुंडोरम MLC हैं, कोदंडराम ये MLC हैं। इनका स्वागत है इस आज के कॉन्फ्रेंस के इस सत्र में। प्रोफेसर साहब, वेलकम। हमारे बीच में विश्वविद्यालय अनुदान आयोग के पूर्व अध्यक्ष एमिनेंट प्रोफेसर सुखदेव थोराट जी, जो इंडियन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ दलित स्टडीज के डायरेक्टर भी रहे हैं और चेयरपर्सन हैं वर्तमान दौर में। हम इनका भी स्वागत करते हैं। प्रोफेसर सुखदेव थोराट हमारे प्रोमिनेंट प्रोफेसर रहे हैं जवाहरलाल नेहरू विश्वविद्यालय में और UGC के पहले हमारे समाज के चेयरमैन। हमारे बीच में
हेलो,
हमारे बीच में भारतीय प्रशासनिक सेवा के वरिष्ठ अधिकारी और हरियाणा राज्य सरकार में एडिशनल चीफ सेक्रेटरी के पद पे कार्यरत हमारे गाइड, हमारे मेंटर आदरणीय डॉक्टर राजशेखर बुंद्रू जी का स्वागत है।
थैंक यू।
हमारे बीच में डॉक्टर रामचंद्र मूर्ति जी, सीनियर एडिटर, इनका भी स्वागत है और मंच पे इनसे गुजारिश है कि वो आए। हमारे बीच में एडवोकेट रजनी सोरेन जी हैं, इनका भी इस सत्र में स्वागत है। एडवोकेट रजनी सोरेन। हमारे बीच में भारतीय प्रशासनिक सेवा के वरिष्ठ अधिकारी, पूर्व मुख्य सचिव आदरणीय श्री काकी माधव राव जी, जिनको हर समय हम सुनते रहते हैं। पिछले 15 वर्षों से हम पूरे राष्ट्रीय स्तर पे जो जितने भी कोलेशन बने, गठबंधन बने, आदरणीय माधव कार्की राव जी। तो अब मैं अगली कार्यवाही के लिए आदरणीय लक्ष्मीया जी से गुजारिश करूंगा कि वो आगे की करें। धन्यवाद।
I invite Professor R. Limbadri, the former chairperson, Council for Higher Education, Telangana State. And I invite our young leader, local corporator C.N. Reddy to take a dais. Please come, please come. Thank you, Sukhdev Vishwapremji. He is one of the leading activists in Himachal Pradesh. They are fighting for SC/ST Supplan Act. I think they mobilize 50-60 organizations in the state level. They are very actively doing. Consistently they are doing in their job. Thank you very much. I welcome to all, and I welcome to particularly Punjab, Uttar Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Kerala, and Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. I welcome all the organizations, including team from Telangana, IDJN, International Dalit Journalist Network, from Telangana and Andhra, and ST Welfare Associations from All India. Secretary Ramana also is there. I welcome him. And welcome so many organizations, Jai Bhim Sena, Samata Sainik Dal, and different individuals and activists. This is a very happy moment for me and for you also. We are celebrating 75 years independence of Republic Day. This is a journey of 75 years Indian Republic functioning. Before this, we erecting miniature of the Samvidhan Stamp in 6th floor. We are going to have a developed museum in the 6th floor. In that, we started. Now we are going to have established in 20 feet, but today we put in miniature. The Samvidhan Stamb is a very important, we thought, this is the journey of Indian democracy. Indian democracy started not now, not in independent movement, not in something 1000 years. It was started from 2600 years with the Gautama Buddha. That's why we thought every village and every mohalla, whoever they aspiring, whoever they practicing, whoever they wishing the democratic country, that mohalla, that basti should have this Samvidhan Stamb. This Samvidhan Stamb should actually, this is the original of Ashoka Stamba, Ashoka pillar, but we developed 4 comments of democracy, welfare of the people, and fraternity, and Indian Constitution, heart of Indian Constitution, of a preamble. In that, I think this is one thing today we did it. Another thing is today, why? Because we are celebrating this today is a very important, the milestone of Indian democracy, milestone of Indian history also. The 75 years we traveled with our constitution. With the constitution, we got so many victories, so many rights we got, so many welfare schemes came, so much relief to the victims, whoever they exploited by the rich and upper caste and feudal people. In that context, in this time, we have so many obstacles, so many problems for the constitution with the rulers and activists, so many people. They are talking against the constitution, they want to change the constitution, so many things they are talking. That's why this group, now we announced the names. With that groups, we are organizing every week online seminar. With the friend Rajshekar Undru suggestion, we going to organize 75 online lectures from November 26, 2024 to November 26, 2025. From next month, we have to go every week 2 lectures. Saturday evening 1 lecture, Sunday morning 2nd lecture. That's why these lectures also, we want create some consciousness among the people, activists, all those people. About this Center for Dalit Studies, started in 1999, but its work start 2001-2002. Major CDS activity, CDS success, all of you know, it was a successful movement of Supplan Act in United Andhra Pradesh 2012. After that, Uttarakhand enacted, and Karnataka, Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu. Now it momentum going very speed in Himachal Pradesh and Punjab and Uttarakhand and all those states. Another thing is this, building is meant for the pride of Dalits. We have to show our strength, we have to show our ability, we have to show our action, activity to the society, to the governments, to our community also. These are actual 9 floors, 2 floors parking, 1 floor tilt in ground. First floor, we are going to have a museum, TV studio, some office space. Then second floor we have a classroom, 100 people, is a digital classroom. Then office space. Then third floor totally media and library, digital and manual library. Fourth floor total meant for accommodation, 100 people. Fifth, now we are sitting here, auditorium, it is a 292 seating. Sixth floor, we are going to a plan for the museum. Still now there is no Dalit museum in the country. It's a very sad thing. The tribal museums are there, heritage museums are there, but no government or no others are not thought about it. That's why in the CDS campus we have to go into a small place. It's not a big place. It's a 5,000 square feet like that. We have to go into a mainly digital library with all information of scheduled castes. So with the personalities, history, occupations, the movements, books, whatever regarding Dalits. Even we are going to have a museum place outside of the museum, corridor of museum, we are going to have a erect of the Indian Constitution and rock. We are going to flake preamble, fundamental rights and directive principles and other related welfare articles in the Constitution. That's we have to put black stone, then we can put the article on the stone. This inspiration I got from Hammurabi Code. In BC 1700, Hammurabi was a king. He erected his code on the rock. It was unearthed, I think, 20 years, 30 years back. That was, I read it and I decided this should be better thing. There's another thing is, you have to, going to have a library. The digital library, we thought minimum 1 lakh books should be digitalized by the Dalits, on the Dalits. By the Dalits, whatever he wrote, she wrote. On the Dalits, whoever they wrote and he and she. Even non-Dalits also, they wrote about Dalits. Non-Dalits also, they wrote about something, Dalit issues, Dalit rights, whatever. You have to digitalize that books. Like that, we want this Center for Dalit Studies Library should have a unique and it will be available to all over world, whoever they want to see the history and whatever things. Second thing is that we are going to organize a Ambedkar Internet Archives also. This is also we are planning. In international level, Marxist Internet Archives, their literature, their material is a huge, the lakhs of crores of the pages. That's why this is a thing. I think this building, land and construction support, financial support given by the state government. In 2016, April 14th, those Chief Minister, Mr. K. Chandrasekhar Rao. Then after that, this financial assistance also they given by the state government. I think it is a 25 crores project totally. It should be going to inaugurate. I think this new government, I hope they will think about us. They will definitely support running and whatever people aspirations, they should come to support us. We already request the government should visit and inaugurate. K. Rajgaru is our well-wisher from the centuries. From the years, I asked him already. He is talking to government people, I think they will come to see and inaugurate this. With this, I stop here, and I request all the dignitaries, the elder people. I think these people are from the beginning, they are very support with CDS. Sudarshan Reddy garu, Thorat garu, Kodanram garu, Ramchandramurthy garu, Madhavrao garu, Rajshekhar garu, and CN Reddy is a very young, dynamic corporator here. He is also very activist in the Telangana, very active in Telangana movement. That's why I request all the dignitaries, elders, to have a garland, Ambedkar, and after that we have a Buddha Vandana, then we can start the program. Thank you. Vinay Kumar garu to have a Anand, Bolimer Anand garu, Chandrudu garu, Sunita garu, please have a tribute. I invite Sangapala Bante garu from Mahabodhi, Secunderabad. Please come on dais. Sangapala Bante.
మొట్టమొదట త్రిరత్నాలైనటువంటి బుద్ధ ధమ్మ సంఘాలకు నమస్కారం. తర్వాత మా బడాబంతేజీ పాద పద్మాలకు నమస్కారం, మా గురుబంతేజీకి నమస్కారం. మరి మీ అందరికీ మైత్రి. భగవాన్ బుద్ధుడి ధమ్మాన్ని ధమ్మ వినయ అంటారు. అందులో వినయ అంటే భిక్షు లేక భిక్షుణీలు ఏ విధంగా నడుచుకోవాలి అనేటువంటిది వినయాలో చెప్పబడింది. భగవాన్ బుద్ధుడు ఏమని చెప్పాడంటే వినయ పాటించడమే వినయ శాసనస ఆయు అన్నాడు అనమాట. ఎంతవరకు ఆ రూల్స్ పాటిస్తారో అంతవరకు భగవాన్ బుద్ధుడి శాసనం ఉంటుంది అని చెప్పిన్నాడు అనమాట. ఈరోజు మనం 76వ గణతంత్ర దినోత్సవాన్ని జరుపుకుంటున్నాం. 75 సంవత్సరాలు గడిచిపోయినాయి. బాబాసాహెబ్ అంబేద్కర్ గారు కూడా నేను ఏ ఫ్రెంచ్ విప్లవం వాటి నుంచో ఫ్రెంచ్ రాజ్యాంగం నుంచో తీసుకోలేదు, భగవాన్ బుద్ధుడి బోధనల నుంచే నేను రాజ్యాంగాన్ని తీసుకున్నాను అని చెప్పారు. ఇంకా మన దేశ ప్రజలందరూ ఎంతవరకు రాజ్యాంగం పట్ల భక్తి ప్రవృత్తులు అంటే తిసరణ మనస వాచ కర్మణ దాన్ని పాటించినట్లయితే అంతవరకు మనం సమైక్యంగా ఉండగలుగుతాం. మన రాజ్యాంగాన్ని ఎప్పుడైతే గౌరవం కోల్పోతుందో అప్పుడు మన దేశం కూడా ప్రమాదంలో పడుతుంది. కాబట్టి రాజ్యాంగం పట్ల గౌరవం ఉండాల్సిన బాధ్యత ప్రతి పౌరుడి మీద ఉంది. ఇంకా తిసరణాలు గురించి పంచశీల గురించి మీరు వినే ఉంటారు, కొత్త వాళ్ళకి చెప్తాను. త్రిశరణాలు అంటే బుద్ధ ధమ్మ సంఘాలకు శరణు వెళ్ళడం అంటే మనం కార్యకారణ సంబంధాలని నమ్మడం, అంతేగాని గుడ్డిగా దేన్ని నమ్మకపోవడం. ఇంకా పంచశీలాలు అంటే నేను ఏ ప్రాణులను చంపను అనేది, తర్వాత దొంగతనం చేయను, అనైతిక సంబంధాలు పెట్టుకోను, అబద్ధాలు ఆడను, తర్వాత చివరిది మత్తు పదార్థాలు సేవించను. ఇవి మనకు వ్యక్తిగత జీవితంలోనూ ఎంతోనూ ఉపయోగపడతాయి. తర్వాత కుటుంబ పరంగా కూడా ఎంతో ఉపయోగం. ఈ హంతకుడు ఉంటే కుటుంబంలో కూడా చాలా సమస్యలు వస్తాయి. వ్యక్తిగతంగా వాళ్ళకి అపరాధ భావన, భయం ఇలాంటివి ఉంటాయి. అలాగే సమాజానికి కూడా ఈ పంచశీలను పాటించడం వల్ల చాలా శుభాలన్నీ జరుగుతాయి. మరి ఈ అవగాహనతో ఎవరైనా సరే తీసుకోదలుచుకుంటే స్వచ్ఛందంగా తిసరణాలను పంచశీలను తీసుకోండి. నేను పాలీలో చెప్తాను, ఇవే మీరు రిపీట్ చేయండి. నేను కూర్చున్న పర్లేదు. అందరూ చేతులు జోడించండి. నేను చెప్పినట్లు చెప్పండి. నమో తస్స భగవతో అర్హతో సమ్మా సంబుద్ధస్స. నమో తస్స భగవతో అర్హతో సమ్మా సంబుద్ధస్స. నమో తస్స భగవతో అర్హతో సమ్మా సంబుద్ధస్స. బుద్ధం శరణం గచ్ఛామి, ధమ్మం శరణం గచ్ఛామి, సంఘం శరణం గచ్ఛామి, ద్వితీయంపి బుద్ధం శరణం గచ్ఛామి, ద్వితీయంపి ధమ్మం శరణం గచ్ఛామి, ద్వితీయంపి సంఘం శరణం గచ్ఛామి, తృతీయంపి బుద్ధం శరణం గచ్ఛామి, తతియంపి ధమ్మం శరణం గచ్ఛామి తతియంపి సంఘం శరణం గచ్ఛామి. నేను తిసరణ గమనం పరిపూర్ణం అంటాం, మీరు ఆమభంతే అనండి. తిసరణ గమనం పరిపూర్ణం, మీరు ఆమభంతే అనండి. తర్వాత నేను చెప్పినట్లు చెప్పండి. పాణాతిపాత వేరమణి సిక్ఖాపదం సమాదియామి. అదిన్నాదాన వేరమణి సిక్ఖాపదం సమాదియామి. కామేషు మిచ్ఛాచార వేరమణి సిక్ఖాపదం సమాదియామి. ముసావాద వేరమణి సిక్ఖాపదం సమాదియామి. సురామేరయ మజ్జపమాదఠాన వేరమణి సిక్ఖాపదం సమాదియామి. సాధు 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 తిసరణేన సద్ధిం పంచశీలం ధమ్మం సాధుకం సురక్షితం కద్వా అప్పమాదేన సంపాదేథ. వీరందరూ ఆమభంతే అనండి. ఆమభంతే. సాధు సాధు సాధు. ఇది తిసరణ.
థ్యాంక్ యూ బంతే గారు. మనకు తెలుగు మా బంతేలలో చాలా తక్కువ మంది ఉన్నారు. ఇక్కడ ఈయనొక్కరే. చాలా రోజులుగా బుద్ధవనంలో నేను పనిచేస్తున్న సమయంలో చాలాసార్లు బుద్ధవనం వచ్చారు. మరొక్కసారి వారికి వందనాలు తెలియజేస్తూ ఈ సమావేశం వచ్చినందుకు మరొక్కసారి మీకు ప్రత్యేక ధన్యవాదాలు.
ఇంకొకటి ఒక ముఖ్యమైన విషయం ఒకటి, త్రిపీఠక చాంటింగ్ అని ఇంటర్నేషనల్ మాంక్స్ అందరూ 9వ తారీఖు ఫిబ్రవరిన మహాబోధి మా బుద్ధ విహారం ఉంది సికింద్రాబాద్ మహేంద్ర హిల్స్లో. దాంట్లో అందరూ 100కి పైగా మాంకులు అందరూ చాంటింగ్ చేస్తారు. మీకు ఎవరికైనా అవకాశం ఉంటే అందరూ తప్పనిసరిగా రావాల్సిందిగా విజ్ఞప్తి.
ఈ 9 తారీఖు అంటే మహేంద్ర హిల్స్లో ఉంటుంది, అందరూ తెలిసి ఉంటుంది కాబట్టి అవకాశం ఉన్న వాళ్ళందరూ వెళ్ళి రావాలని కోరుతున్నాను. థ్యాంక్ యూ. ఇప్పటికే చాలా మనం అనుకున్న దానికంటే ఆలస్యమైంది, కానీ చాలామంది ఇంకా రావాల్సి ఉంది. ఇప్పుడు మనం కార్యక్రమాన్ని స్టార్ట్ చేసుకుందాం. ఈ కార్యక్రమంలో మనకి చీఫ్ గెస్ట్గా చేసిన జస్టిస్ సుదర్శన్ రెడ్డి గారు తర్వాత తన అభిప్రాయాల్ని వ్యక్తపరచడానికి వచ్చిన కోదండరామ్ గారు, తర్వాత కీనోట్ ఇవ్వడానికి వచ్చిన ప్రొఫెసర్ సుఖ్దేవ్ తోరాట్ గారికి ఈ సెషన్ ఆహ్వానం పలుకుతున్నాము. ముందుగా ప్రొఫెసర్ సుఖ్దేవ్ తోరాట్ గారు, రిక్వెస్ట్ సుఖ్దేవ్ తోరాట్ గారు ప్లీజ్ గివ్ ఏ కీనోట్ ఇన్ దిస్.
Jai Bhim to all of you. Chief Guest Justice Sudarshan Reddy, the Chairman of the Center for Dalit Studies, Lapali Lakshmaya, Dr. Rajshekhar Gundu, Professor Limadri, Mr. Kaki Madhavrao, other distinguished guests on the dais, and the distinguished person in the audience. Let me first begin with Let me first begin with a profound congratulation and appreciation for the amount of effort that Lakshmaya has put in building this wonderful building of the Center for Dalit Research and Studies. I have a feeling that this is going in the future, this is going to be a central place where the research on Dalit and related issues will be taken. It's always difficult for us to build up an infrastructure. We require physical infrastructure and human resource infrastructure also, but physical infrastructure is very difficult, and I think because of his leadership and effort, we have this 9-story building with different floors, and definitely in future this will turn out to be a major center of the think tanks. Given the time constraint, I will only make a couple of points because there are many speakers and time is much less. We all are concerned and deeply depressed at times, the kind of the situation that is going on around. Never before in the history of India the Constitution has been brought into such a central stage, and everybody want to grab it. The reason is that the people think that the Constitution is itself is under risk, and therefore it has to be reminded, it has to be celebrated that Constitution is close to our heart. Constitution is, as a matter of fact, the instrument of liberation of India and in general and the depressed classes in particular. It is in the present context, I just want to make a couple of points for your consideration. The topic that I have selected for discussion is emancipatory element in Indian Constitution. How the vision of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar is not fully incorporated into this Constitution. His idea of Constitution is, he was successful in bringing several of his thoughts in the Constitution as the chairman of the drafting committee. But at the same time, his thought and his original thoughts about the Constitution, what Constitution we should have. Will you please stop for a minute, please? You can sit down and take the photograph later on because it gets disturbed. Although we say that the Constitution, Babasaheb is the framer of the Constitution, he is the architect of the Constitution, but not all of his thoughts are included in the Constitution. And that is very important. And secondly, that for not being included in his thought in the Constitution, the danger that we are confronting today, as far as the Constitution is concerned, it is because that his views were not incorporated. We have a very distinguished justice here, Sudarshan Reddy, he will say in greater detail. But the limited point that I want to make is this, that Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar was able to bring lot many principles in the Constitution which emancipate the Dalit, emancipate the depressed classes, transform their life. In Hindi, we say that the Constitution is sort of mukti. It brings a mukti and freedom to the depressed classes. And there are several elements in the Constitutions. I remember to have commented on the lecture given by Justice Chandrachud, former Chief Justice Chandrachud, on his lecture in Brandeis University, USA. The emancipatory element in the institution, in the Indian Constitution has a two-part. One is, of course, the preamble, which define the character of the Constitution, it being democratic, secular, socialist, and republic. And the goal of the Constitution is to provide social justice, equality, liberty, and fraternity, and also national integration. This is the major part of the Constitution, but the core of the Constitution is the fundamental rights. Fundamental rights of any constitution is the core of the Constitution. Executive, judiciary, and several other things are for the purpose of ensuring fundamental right to the people. And the fundamental rights, of course, are equality, equal opportunity, equality before law, liberty, freedom, and freedom of all kinds, freedom of religion, freedom of expression, freedom of writings, and the fraternity, the brotherhood between the people. So this is the core of the Constitution that Baba Sahib has brought, and the Constitutional Assembly has brought. Article 16, Article 14 talks about equality. Article 15 talks about non-discrimination, that nobody will be discriminated based on his or her identity of caste, religion, ethnicity, gender. And Baba Sahib brought additionally the emphasis on non-discrimination. Equality was good enough, but he reiterated the non-discrimination as such. Now, this is the core of the Constitution, that fundamental rights are given. Constitution ensures those fundamental rights. State has a responsibility to guarantee the fundamental right. Now, this has been the part of the Constitution everywhere. The British Constitution that we have taken from and elsewhere. But what is additional in Indian Constitution, and primarily because of Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar and also by the Constitutional Assembly, is that the commitment on the part of the state to do something to promote fundamental rights, and particularly for the depressed classes. Constitution would have been good enough to say that we guarantee this fundamental right. But I think Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar, if you remember correctly, his comment on the objective resolution presented by Jawaharlal Nehru, and he said that this objective resolution talk about equality, social justice, but I don't see remedies. And fundamental right without remedies have no meaning. So Baba Sahib Ambedkar went a step ahead. And in this Constitution, the aspect of emancipation, aspect of transformation is that there are certain remedies in the Constitution, which I think is the contribution of Baba Sahib Ambedkar. Untouchability has been banned in Article 70. As a follow-up of that, we had the Untouchability Offence Act of 1955. And very critical and very important provision in the Constitution is that despite liberty and fraternity, what it does is that it empowers the state, that state will undertake policies subject to the other provision. Nobody will stop the state from developing policies in order to secure the fundamental right, in order to ensure the participation of depressed classes in public employment. Now, this is a one step ahead, that you are banning untouchability, making it an act of punishment. You are making a provision that the state has the responsibility to frame policies to ensure share in the public employment, and then whole lot of reservation policy provision about reservation policies. Reservation in legislature, reservation in public job, reservation in education institution, protection for women, protection of the minorities. These are the measures which are suggested in the Constitution, on the basis of which government could take the decision. I think this is a very important feature of the Constitution, which talks about the well-being and emancipation of the depressed classes. But the most important, equally important part of the Constitution, I think in my view, beside this provision, is the directive principle. Directive principle is important because there are certain reasons for that why Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar brought the directive principle in the Indian Constitution. I will come to that. I will explain in the second part of the next point of my speech. But the directive principle is such an important provision in Article It begins with Article 34, 35, 36, and goes on 37. Even if you look at the title, that itself tells you that directive principle is not enforceable in the court of law. It only laid down the guidelines for the state to develop the policy to achieve the ultimate goal of well-being of the people. Now, if you look at the title, it's very interesting. State to secure a social order for the promotion of the welfare of the people. I am not going into detail. Certain principle of policy to be followed by the state. And then there are provision of organizations of the village panchayat, right to work, to education, public assistance in certain cases, provision for just and human condition of work and maternity relief, living wages for the worker, participation of the worker in the management of the industries, protection of the minorities and others, international peace. After having gone through the director principle, I just recall that it is nothing but it is a complete socialistic program, except the nationalization of state ownership of land or industry. If you exclude that, which is the major policy of the socialists, the rest of the party is just like a socialist organization. So you can see that if you take the fundamental right, the policy, the legislative measure and other provision for the depressed classes and the directive principle, the constitution is in a way emancipatory document. It is a document which help to transform the life of the people. Now this much is fine. I will take only 5 minutes and stop. This much is fine, but Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar was not free as he would like to have a constitution of his own. His main role was that whatever was the consensus developed in the Constitutional Assembly, he gave a lead. He gave academic justification, he gave support. This doesn't mean that all of his individual view were incorporated in the Constitution. In my view, the Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Constitution is in state and minorities, which is submitted in the year 1947 to the Fundamental Right Committee, wherein he suggested the economic system, political system and social system. The economic system which is suggested was socialism, where the land will be nationalized and collectively owned, basic and key industry will be with the government, education and insurance and health with the government. That is the economic system that he wanted to be incorporated in the constitution. He called it a constitutional state socialism. He wanted state socialism to act up the constitution. And of course the parliamentary democracy and the social system based on equality, fraternity and justice. Now what the constitution accepted was parliamentary democracy and certain provision for the depressed classes. Constitution Assembly did not accept the economic system that Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar proposed. Constitution even did not accept it. And remember well, we are facing the problem today. Constitution even did not accept his remedies for the social and the religious minorities. And as a result, we are facing a problem today. Now let me make very quickly 2 points. That why did he suggest state socialism? Why did he suggest socialist economy in place of private economy? He gave 2 reasons for that. One is that the private economy created economic inequalities, immense inequalities about the wealth and the income, and the poor tend to get deprived of enjoying fundamental right. If constitution provides fundamental right, and if you have a private economic system whereby the poor tend to lose their freedom, therefore he suggested, and it produces immense inequality that we see today. So for ensuring fundamental right, he wanted economy based on socialistic means of production. But also, as I said, he also wanted the socialist economy to ensure that the poor get the fundamental right. If you have rich and poor depend on the rich, they tend to lose their fundamental right. And therefore he suggested to take out the very economic power of the better off section to control the poor. I think that was one of the reasons that he suggested, which was not obviously accepted. And today we are facing, you can look at the composition of the member of the parliament in Delhi and some of the state, it's all dominated by the rich people. Early phase of 50s and the 60s were dedicated worker, social worker, Congress and otherwise were in the parliament. Now it is dominated by the corporate sector, business class, and the social worker are not very much there. So this is one point. So to that extent, why I am saying that this constitution did not incorporate Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar view, this is one point. And to that extent, it doesn't include the liberation method. The last point I will say, and that is very important, that Dr. Ambedkar also was very concerned for adopting the British parliamentary democracy as it is. What is the British parliamentary democracy? British parliamentary democracy is that you have multiple party, the party which come into majority form the government. That is typically the British parliamentary system, party system. Now, Dr. Ambedkar argued that this is not going to work. In a country like India, where there are diverse groups, the democracy may turn into a communal democracy. And nobody was as much worried as he was, and therefore he wrote the first memorandum, Communal Deadlock and Way to Solve it. That memorandum gives the solution to protect the minorities in parliamentary democracy, to give due representation to the minorities, and that he incorporated in the state and minority. State and minority was brought in 1947. Communal Deadlock and Way to Solve it was in 1946. Now, what was his solution? His solution was, I think, again, I don't have a time, he gave 3 suggestions that if in India, because of this caste and the religion, the democracy will turn into a communal democracy. A majority party, which is Hindu, they will remain in the power. Majority is communal. It is not political. People hold the people of their caste, people hold the people of their religion. Religious base of the democracy has now come in a big way. So Dr. Ambedkar was very, very concerned that the religion will take over the democracy and it will acquire a communal base, which exactly has happened today. Caste has been influencing, but at least caste, we have sobered it down. But now the religion has acquired a base to the electoral democracy, and the democracy is becoming the majoritarian state of the Hindu, which Dr. Babasaheb has warned, and he had given 3 suggestions. You know, I'm very unfortunate, I feel very happy that 2 of his outstanding book, Communal Deadlock and Way to Solve it, and State and Minority, have been completely, nearly neglected by the Dalits, even scholar. Annihilation of Caste is more emphasized and others are more emphasized, but these are the 2 important books of his. Now, he gave 3 solutions to reduce the weightage of the majority and give a due state to the minority in the legislature. One was that he said reduce the seat of the majority, Hindu, and increase the seats of the scheduled castes and other religious minorities, so that there is a balanced representation. That is the word that he has used. If there is a overwhelming religious majority, then the minority will be in danger. So he gave a proposal to reduce the seat and distribute it to the minority so that there is a balance. Second, he suggested was that the executive, the ministers, should be elected not by the party which is in majority alone. Majority party will form the government, but the minister and the prime minister will be elected by the entire house. Opposition as well as those who are in power will elect which member of the majority party will be the prime minister. Again, who will be the cabinet minister? Again, most importantly, who will be the minority minister will be elected by the minority member of the entire house, opposition as well as the majority party. So that he gave these 2 suggestions. He also gave the 3 suggestions, which is not repeated in state and minority, is that the decision should be, on some of the important issues, the decision should be unanimity and not majority. 41 versus 51, no. Unanimity. If the entire house say yes, then you take a decision on those major issues, or at least 75%. So, and he gave the example of the National Security Council, UN Security Council, where the decision is taken by unanimity. Even one person opposed, decision will not be taken. So these were the 3 suggestions which were given by him to modify, to provide safeguard against the communal majority. The other point that he was made, and I'll end with that he see a danger of fascism in India. If the political party is a religious party, in a way, the majority base is religion, the way some of the principle of social systems are involved, the caste system are involved, it has a tendency to turn into a fascism. And fascism means a government of one religious party, a dictatorial government, a single leader having a lot of power. Now, those principles are very much in the Manusmriti or in the Brahmanism. What are the major principles of Brahmanism? We have a secular state. Brahmanism talk about the religion, state based on religion, Brahmanism. Republic, people of the government. Brahmanism talk about the government of one caste, Kshatriya, one section, not of the people. We talk of the secular, socialism, the Brahmanism based on the principle of private property. So you can see all the principles which are there in the Brahmanism, which the people want to bring now, are against the basic principle of the constitutions. So and it has an element of fascism. Now I will make a last point and say the fascism that came in 30s and in Germany was borrowed by Nasse from Manusmriti. It was not the origin of the Germany itself. You know, it is said that the Hitlers became fascist and because of the Nasse's philosophy. But Nasse in turn borrows from Manusmriti. If you read the essay by Dr. Ambedkar, Philosophy of Hinduism, he has given the quotation. He has given the quotation of Nasse, who praised Manusmriti and built up his ideology of fascism in Germany. So the fascist tendency that we have today have origin in the Manusmriti. Let me read out for you one sentence by Nasse, who borrowed from Manusmriti and developed his concept of Nazism, that one race being superior. Nasse writes, I know of any book in which so many delicate and kindly things are said. Kindly things are said. He's talking about Manusmriti. Ambedkar observed, Nasse was interested in creating a new race of men, which will be a race of Superman. Here, if you look at the philosophy of Hinduism by Baba Sahib Ambedkar, Brahmins are considered to be Superman, God of God, God of universe. And the German philosophy is also based on the superior race. So Nasse was interested in creating a new race of men, which will be race of Superman. Manu, on the other hand, was interested in maintaining the privilege of a class who had come to aggregate to itself the claim of being a Superman. Manu engaged to profound philosophy to serve the interest of a particular class. So you can see, I don't have a time, I don't want to spend on that, but the point is that the fascist tendency that we see here, I am not referring to any party, I am not referring to any government, I am giving you the theory that if there are fascist tendencies, its origin is there in Manusmriti, which was borrowed by Nasse, and that is how in 30s and 40s you find fascism coming up in Germany. I think I will conclude by saying that the warning that were given by Baba Sahib Ambedkar and the solution which were given by him led to the situation that we have today. And had his suggestion been included in the constitution as a safeguard against the religious majority, has his suggestion been included with respect to economic system in the constitution, then the problem that we are confronting today, that taking over of government by the corporate sector, taking over of government by one particular religion would not have happened. So Dr. Ambedkar is still relevant today, and therefore we must discuss and try to draw a lesson from it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I think everybody knows about Thorat sir. He is very known to Hyderabad and progressive and Dalit organizations people. And now I request Kodanram Garu. He was a chairman of Telangana Joint Action Committee. Now he is a chairman of the Telangana Jan Samiti. Now he got one opportunity to represent in the legislature as MLC.
మిత్రులందరికీ పేరు పేరున వందనం. కొంతమందికి తెలుగు రాదు, కానీ ఎక్కువ మందికి తెలుగు వచ్చిన వాళ్ళే ఉన్నారు ఇక్కడ. కాబట్టి తెలుగులో మాట్లాడతాను, మధ్య మధ్యన కొంత ఇంగ్లీష్లో తర్జుమా చేసి చెప్తూ. వాళ్ళ మన భారతదేశంలో ఒక విచిత్రమైన పరిస్థితి ఉంది. పాలకులకేమో ఈ రాజ్యాంగం పూతే బాగుండు, ఇది బంగాళాఖాతంలో కలిపేస్తే బాగుండు అనుకుంటున్నారు. ప్రజలేమో కంచుకోటలాగా నిలబడి రాజ్యాంగాన్ని కాపాడుకునే ప్రయత్నం చేస్తున్నారు. ఇది చాలా ప్రత్యేకమైన పరిస్థితి ఇవాళ మన దేశంలో. పాలకులకు ఎందుకు పోవాలని ఉందంటే, ఇది లేకపోతే ఇంకా వనరులను మనం కొల్లగొట్టచ్చు, దోచుకోవచ్చు, మొత్తం కూడా కొంత కార్పొరేట్ వర్గానికి పంచిపెట్టచ్చు అనే కోరిక ఉంది. ప్రజలకేముందంటే, ఎంతో కొంత ఆత్మగౌరవంతో ఇలా బతకగలుగుతున్నామంటే అది రాజ్యాంగం చేయబట్టే. ఈ రాజ్యాంగమే లేకపోతే మనం ఈ ఆత్మగౌరవంతో బతికే అవకాశం కూడా ఉండదు అని ప్రజల్లో ఒక భావన. ఇది చాలా కీలకమైనటువంటి పరిణామం. అందుకనే ఇవాళ పాలకులు రాజ్యాంగాన్ని కెలికినప్పుడల్లా ప్రజలు పెద్ద ఎత్తున తిరుగుబాటు చేస్తున్నారు, రకరకాల రూపాల్లో అసంతృప్తిని వ్యక్తం చేస్తున్నారు. అట్లా ఇది ఒక విస్తృతమైన ప్రజా పునాదిని సంతరించుకున్నది. బహుశా ఇంత ప్రజా పునాది కలిగినటువంటి రాజ్యాంగం చాలా తక్కువగా, చాలా అరుదుగా కనబడుతూ ఉంటుంది. ఇవాళ ప్రజలకు ఎందుకు ఇది ఇంత కీలకమైంది అంటే, మనకు 3వ అధ్యాయం 4వ అధ్యాయం చేయబట్టే. అవి లేకపోతే ఈ రాజ్యాంగానికి ఇతర రాజ్యాంగాలకు తేడా ఉండదు. మన రాజ్యాంగంలో ప్రధానంగా 3వ అధ్యాయం అనేది ప్రజలందరికీ హక్కులను కల్పిస్తున్నది. అది తీసుకొచ్చిన ఒక విప్లవాత్మకమైన పరిణామం ఏంది? ప్రజలందరూ సమానమని ప్రకటించింది. రాజకీయంగా అందరూ సమానులమే, సామాజిక జీవితంలో అందరం సమానులమే అని ప్రకటించింది. దేశంలో ఉన్న అసమానతలను రద్దు చేసింది. 4వ అధ్యాయం ఏం చేసిందంటే, ఇవి పొందాలంటే మనిషికి కొంత సౌకర్యాలు ఉండాలి కదా, అవి లేకపోతే ఈ హక్కుకుండే అర్థం ఉండదని చెప్పి మనుషులందరికీ కావలసిన వనరులను కల్పించేటువంటి బాధ్యత ప్రభుత్వం మీద పెట్టింది. మామూలుగానైతే ఏ రాజ్యాంగం అయినా ప్రజల హక్కులను నిర్వచించి ప్రభుత్వ అధికార పరిమితులను తెలియజేస్తుంది. కానీ భారత రాజ్యాంగం ఈ పని చేయటం మాత్రమే కాదు, దానికి మించి ప్రజలందరూ నిండైన జీవితం పొందటానికి కావలసినటువంటి బాధ్యతలను ప్రభుత్వం మీద పెట్టింది. ఇవాళ వస్తున్న ఈ వైరుధ్యానికి కారణం ఏంటంటే, ఈ ప్రజలందరికీ సౌకర్యాలను కల్పించవలసిన బాధ్యతను వదులుకోగలిగితే ఈ వనరులన్నింటినీ కావలసిన వాళ్ళకు పంచుకోవచ్చు కదా అనే ఆలోచన ఇవాళ పాలకుల్లో బలంగా వచ్చింది. అది వాళ్ళ సమస్య. మనం విద్య కావాలి, వైద్యం కావాలి, ఉపాధి కావాలి, ఇల్లు కావాలి, గౌరవంగా బతికే అవకాశం కావాలి అని అడుగుతున్నాం. అవన్నీ కల్పించటానికి అవకాశం రాజ్యాంగం కల్పించింది. ఆ బాధ్యత రాజ్యాంగం ప్రభుత్వం మీద ఉంచింది. అందుకని ఇది ఒక మార్పుకు వేదికగా ఈ రాజ్యాంగం ఏర్పడింది. ఆ మార్పును సాధించటమే ఇవాళ ప్రధానమైనటువంటి ఒక బాధ్యత ప్రభుత్వాల మీద ఉంది. సరళీకరణ దానికి అడ్డం వస్తూ ఉన్నది. పాలకులకు రకరకాలుగా వాళ్ళు అనుసరిస్తున్నటువంటి విధానాల కారణంగా ఒక ఆటంకంగా కనబడుతూ ఉంది రాజ్యాంగం అనేది. అది వాళ్ళ ఉన్న సమస్య. పూర్తి నిరంకుశత్వం చేతుల్లో, అధికారాలను చేతుల్లో పెట్టుకొని ఇష్టానుసారంగా వనరులను ఉపయోగించగలిగితే అంతకంటే మించేం కావాలి? అది వాళ్ళ పాలకులకు ఉండే ఆలోచన. ఈ వైరుధ్యాలను పరిష్కరించే క్రమంలో ప్రజలు రాజ్యాంగాన్ని కాపాడుకునే ప్రయత్నం చేస్తున్నారు. ఈ రాజ్యాంగాన్ని కాపాడుకోవటానికి ప్రజలు చేస్తున్న ప్రయత్నానికి ఇట్లాంటి సదస్సులు ఊతమిస్తాయి. ఇవాళ ఎందుకు పెట్టుకుంటున్నాం? 75 ఏళ్ళు విస్తృత ప్రజా పునాదిని సంపాదించుకుని నిలబడిన రాజ్యాంగం ఏదన్నా ఉంది అంటే బహుశా 3వ ప్రపంచ దేశాల్లో మనకి ఎక్కడ కూడా కనబడదు. అది మన భారతదేశంలో మాత్రమే మనకు కనబడుతూ ఉంది. ఇంత విస్తృత ప్రజా పునాదిని సంపాదించుకోవటం 75 ఏళ్ల క్రమంలో ప్రతి సంవత్సరం దీని పునాది విస్తరించుకుంటూనే పోతున్నది. ప్రజల మద్దతును కూడగట్టుకుంటూనే పోతున్నది ఈ రాజ్యాంగం. కాబట్టి ఇది ఒక అద్భుతమైనటువంటి ప్రయోగము, అద్భుతమైనటువంటి ప్రయాణం. అంబేద్కర్ లాంటి వాళ్ళు ఉండటం, ఒక ప్రజల గొంతుగా ఆ రాజ్యాంగాల్లో సభలో వినిపించటం, ఇది ఈ పరిణామాలన్నింటికి కూడా ఒక మూల కారణం అని చెప్పి మనం అర్థం చేసుకొని ఈ రాజ్యాంగాన్ని కాపాడుకోవటానికి ఇవాళ మనం చాలా కీలకంగా ప్రయత్నం చేయాలి. గద్దరు తన ఆఖరి రోజుల్లో రాజ్యాంగాన్ని చేతిలో పట్టుకొని ఇది సరిగ్గా అమలైతే జీవితాలు మారవా అని, అన్నీ అక్కర్లేదు, ఈ సమానత్వ హక్కును అమలు చేస్తే చాలు, దానికోసం మనం ప్రయాణం చేయాలి, ప్రయత్నం చేయాలి అని కోరుకున్నాడు ఆయన. పాటలు రాసి దాన్ని ఇంకా వ్యాప్తి చేద్దామనుకునే సమయం, దురదృష్టవశాత్తు ఇవాళ ఆయనకు పద్మ అవార్డు ఇవ్వలేదు. ఇవ్వకపోయినా కానీ గద్దరుకు వచ్చేటువంటి పేరు ప్రఖ్యాతులు లేవు. ఇచ్చినంత మాత్రాన, ఇవ్వకపోయినంత మాత్రాన ఆయన స్థానం పడిపోయేది లేదు. కానీ తప్పనిసరిగా ఇవాళ అట్లాంటి వ్యక్తులు మనకు ఉండి ఇంకా దీన్ని వ్యాప్తి చేయటానికి వాళ్ళు చేస్తున్న ప్రయత్నాలు కూడా వీటి వెనకాల ఉన్నాయి. లక్ష్మయ్య గారిని నేను అభినందిస్తూ సెంటర్ ఫర్ దళిత్ స్టడీస్ను కూడా, ఇట్లాంటి ఒక వేదిక రెండవ ప్రపంచ యుద్ధ కాలంలో జర్మనీలో ఉండేది, సోషల్ ఇన్స్టిట్యూట్ అని పెట్టుకొని ప్రజా సమస్యల మీద పరిశోధన చేసి ప్రజా విముక్తి కోసం కావలసిన జ్ఞానాన్ని ఉత్పత్తి చేయటం ఒక లక్ష్యంగా పెట్టుకున్నారు. ఇవాళ సిడిఎస్ అట్లాంటి ఒక వ్యవస్థగా మనకు హైదరాబాదులో ఏర్పడటం అనేది ఒక మంచి పరిణామం. ఈ వ్యవస్థ నిలబడాలి, స్వయం ప్రతిపత్తిని కాపాడుకోగలగాలని చెప్పి నేను కోరుతున్నా. I am only trying to suggest that there are two perspectives on the constitution. While rulers all over in the country want the constitution to be amended or abolished completely, so that they can appropriate all the powers in their hands and use the resources in order to concentrate wealth in the hands of a few corporate houses. Whereas people want the constitution to be implemented. And with the implementation of the constitution, they hope that they can live with dignity and self-respect. That is the hope with which people are protecting the constitution. So as a consequence of, this conflict, the social base of the Indian constitution has been widening over a period of time. And that, I think, is the most wonderful phenomena that we have been observing. And I urge that we should now unite. And we should unite and protect this constitution and ensure that it is properly implemented in letter and spirit. దీన్ని అమలు చేయించుకోవటం ఇవాళ మనం విశాలంగా ఒక ఐక్యం కావలసినటువంటి అవసరం ఉంది. ఇట్లాంటి సెమినార్ల ద్వారా ఇక్కడ వస్తున్న ఆలోచనలు మనకు ఆ ఐక్యతకు ఒక ప్రాతిపదికగా నిలుస్తాయని, ఒక మార్పుకు తొవ్వచూపుతాయనేది మనందరికీ ఒక ఆశ. ఇది జరగాలి. ఒక ప్రజాస్వామికమైన మార్పు కోసం, ప్రజాస్వామికమైన విప్లవం, దాన్ని సాధించటమే రాజ్యాంగ సభ తన కర్తవ్యంగా ఎంచుకున్నది. అట్లాంటి ఒక ప్రయత్నాన్ని ఇవాళ మనమందరం ఐక్యమై దాన్ని కొనసాగించే ప్రయత్నం చేయవలసిన బాధ్యత ఉంది. ఒక మంచి ప్రయత్నం, దీనికి ఊతమిద్దాం. ఈ రాజ్యాంగ విలువలను ఊరూరికి తీసుకొని పోదాం. అది మనం అందరం కూడా ఒక బాధ్యతగా ఎంచుకుందాం. దానికోసం ఒక విస్తృతమైన ప్రయాణాన్ని, ప్రయోగాన్ని మనం నెత్తినేసుకుందామని చెప్పి అందరికీ ఈ సందర్భంగా సూచన చేస్తూ ఈ అవకాశం ఇచ్చినందుకు కృతజ్ఞతలతో సెలవు.
థ్యాంక్ యూ సార్. సార్ చెప్పినట్టు తెలంగాణలో ఒక ప్రయాణం మొదలైంది. అది డిబిఎఫ్, దళిత బహుజన్ ఫ్రంట్, రాజ్యాంగం మీద చాలా రోజులుగా సదస్సులు, యాత్రలు చేస్తూ ఉన్నది. రీసెంట్గా ఇటీవల సూర్యాపేటలో పౌర ప్రజాస్వామిక వేదిక అని ఒక వేదిక ఏర్పాటైంది. తర్వాత ఇంటర్నేషనల్ దళిత్ జర్నలిస్ట్ నెట్వర్క్ కూడా అదే ఆలోచనలు చేస్తూ ఉంది. నా విజ్ఞప్తి ఏంటంటే, ఈ 1 year ఇప్పటి నుంచి November 26 దాకా ఈ సంస్థలన్నీ కలిసి ఒక ఉమ్మడి వేదికగా వచ్చి రాష్ట్ర వ్యాప్తంగా, తెలంగాణ వ్యాప్తంగా ఒక విస్తృతమైన సమావేశాలని, సదస్సుల్ని ఏర్పాటు చేస్తే బాగుంటుందని నేను విజ్ఞప్తి చేస్తున్నాను. దానికి సంబంధించిన ఒక సమన్వయాన్ని సిడిఎస్ తీసుకుంటుంది. నేను ఆల్రెడీ శంకర్తో, ధర్మార్జున్తో మాట్లాడాను. మిగతా జనార్దన్, అంటే ఐడిజే నుంచి జనార్దన్, సంజీవులు కూడా వచ్చారు ఇక్కడికి. ఇంకెవరైనా ఆర్గనైజేషన్స్, ఇప్పుడు ఎస్టీ అసోసియేషన్ నుంచి రమణ గారు వచ్చారు. వీళ్ళందరూ కలిసి ఒకసారి మళ్ళీ కూర్చొని విస్తృతంగా ఒక ఉద్యమ ఆలోచనతో, ఉద్యమ స్ఫూర్తితో ఈ రాజ్యాంగాన్ని, రాజ్యాంగ విలువల్ని, రాజ్యాంగ లక్ష్యాలని, రాజ్యాంగ హక్కుల్ని ప్రజలకు తీసుకెళ్లాల్సిన అవసరం ఉంటుందని కోరుతున్నాను. I request all the Telangana organizations should come together and have a forum to propagate the constitution and protect the constitution of the rights or values, whatever. That's in Telangana already started process. I think from this day to November 26th, we have to one huge campaign, massive campaign we have to take out in Telangana. I request, I think end of this meeting, we can have some resolution also in the national level and state level. Thank you very much. I think my pleasure to invite Justice Darshan Reddy Garu. I think all of know him in Telangana and all India level also. He gave us so many judgments about the constitution, on constitution values and constitutional rights. I think, sir, he was very active with us in Telangana movement. I think in Telangana there is one person where we can talk on constitution rights. That's none other than Justice Sudarshan Reddy. Thank you. Welcome, sir.
It's lunchtime, I suppose, and very difficult to speak. No, I'm not going to take that long. I presume that Sri Malapalli Lakshmaya is presiding over this conference, and Professor Thoraji, Hakim Madharao garu, Ramchandramurti garu, Mitrulu Professor Kodan Ram garu, my friend Rajshekar Hundru, Professor Limbadri, and I find a distinguished lady, Soren, from my fraternity. She is a practicing advocate. And Mr. Reddy, the local councillor who represents all of us here, a galaxy of distinguished personalities. And equally distinguished personalities in the audience. I must express my gratitude to Sri Lakshmaya and Center for Dalit Studies for giving me this opportunity to participate in this meeting. You will forgive me for taking slightly a different route, for ignoring for the present the tagline, assessing the achievements in socio-economic justice. It would be a separate topic. There will be many occasions to speak about in CDS. I propose to deal with one or two recent developments and their impact on the Constitution of India as we understand. And guilty men for my deviation were responsible is Professor Kodan Ram and Sri Ramchandramurti. I was exchanging notes with them to frame my idea. And it is they who are responsible for my deviation. Otherwise, that is my favorite topic, socio-economic justice under the Constitution of India. To the extent possible, I would not repeat what Professor Thoraji and Professor Kodan Ram said. I don't know, all of you have, suppose, read it, including the galaxy of distinguished guests sitting here. Lecture delivered by none other than the most powerful person after the Prime Minister of India, Honorable Home Minister of this country. While inaugurating the Hindu Spiritual and Service Fair 2025, organized by RSS affiliate. Its name is Hindu Spiritual and Service Foundation. We don't know how many such foundations we have. The Honorable Home Minister said, I quote exactly what he has said. Several works of our ideology, which no one dared to even touch in the last 7 decades since independence. This was a lecture delivered on the eve of 20th Republic Day. Of course, there is no mention of Republic Day, no mention of Constitution, no mention of Baba Saheb, no mention of Gandhi, no mention of any freedom fighters. It's a separate matter. And today, India is standing before the world with a pride. And he continued, Article 370 has been abrogated in Kashmir. Ram Lalla's exile. We never knew that Ram could be in exile. It's over after 550 years. A grand Ram temple has been constructed in Ayodhya. Kashi Vishwanath corridor has been made. Somnath temple is being made of gold. Triple talaq is stopped. And the Uniform Civil Code is also in place. This is in continuation of what the head of their organization, Sir Sanchalak, said that SWA is missing. What we got on 15th August 1947 is not the independence. It is 21st January 2024, consecration of the idol of Ram. So what does it mean? Has it anything to do with the ideology of the Constitution? We have a different notion of Constitution and its scope. We always thought it is a revolutionary document, assuring social, political, economic revolution. What is the understanding of such of those who believe in this quote unquote our ideology? What is that our ideology has to do with the Constitution? Constitution is not something which has fallen from the sky. It's not given to us by somebody. We, the people, and given it to ourselves. Of course, our founding fathers and mothers, founding mothers, about whom we don't speak, were responsible for shaping that document, in which Baba Saheb played a predominant role, and that's how we consider him as architect of the Constitution and rather father of the Constitution. If Gandhiji was the father of nation, Baba Saheb was father of Indian Constitution. Do they have any understanding of the pre-constitutional political system? Do they have any understanding? The first war of independence in 1857, and of course, this is not my word. The first war of independence has been used by the new icon. I don't have to name them. And 1857 was followed by the Government of India Act 1858, where the British Empire has taken over the complete control of the territory of India from East India Company. Then thereafter, you have the, I will not go into the details and salient features of the 1858 Act, because it was the beginning where the Britishers have realized it's no more possible without involving the natives, quote unquote, Indians in the administration. Then this was followed by the Indian Councils Act 1861-1892, further improvement of providing some representation, though nominated by the British, into decision-making processes. Then this was followed by Morley-Minto Reform and the Indian Councils Act 1909. This was known by the names of then Secretary of State for India, Lord Morley, and Viceroy Lord Minto, which ultimately has taken the shape of Indian Councils Act 1909. It's the first time they thought about the provincial legislative councils to be more advanced and what some more representation. Because after 1857, the British seem to have realized that it is no more possible to administer in the same fashion as the East India Company was administering the territories which it has occupied directly or indirectly. But one dangerous thing that has crept in 1909, for the first time, separate representation of the Muslim community thought of, and the Britishers have thus sowed the seeds of separatism that eventually led to the partition of India. They were not talking of separate a representation to the weaker sections, Dalits, but they were talking about separate representation to the Muslims and Muslims alone. Then came the Government of India Act 1912-1915. They have undone the partition of Bengal and created new provinces in Bihar and Orissa, and also made Assam a new Chief Commissioner's province. Then came the Montague-Chelmsford Report, which led to the enactment of Government of India Act 1909. One thing we may have to note here, that by the time these reforms were contemplated, the Indian National Congress was established in 1885, was so long under the control of moderates, become more active during the First World War, and started the campaign of self-government, what we call home rule. Therefore, some more reforms were announced that led to the entry of Baba Saheb in 1919. Southborough Committee itself is the product of Montague-Chelmsford reforms. And the representation made by Baba Saheb before the Southborough Committee was universal adult suffrage, with no qualifications prescribed to participate in the governance. It was just not what you call a universal adult suffrage. So what? That was the seed that was sown for demanding and guaranteeing the right to equality. Some of us who have our own ideology, which was referring to earlier, they did not find any SWA, SWA. In these steps, ultimately leading to the independence and the enactment of the Constitution of India. I do not bother you about the details and how the developments have taken place. But they have realized the progressive realization of a responsible government in British India as an integral part of empire was in fact resided in in the Government of India Act 1919. Then they have slowly started relaxation of central control over the provinces. The Indian legislature made somewhat a little more representative under that act. There were several shortcomings about which I do not deal with it. Then comes the Simon Commission and the Communal Award. This was consequent to the dislocation caused by non-cooperation movement, and that led the British government in 1927 to appoint a statutory commission as envisaged by the Government of India Act 1919 itself. Of course, except Baba Sahib. Everybody else boycotted that Simon Commission. Baba Sahib appeared and made the same plea for the universal adult suffrage, because that was his understanding of equality. It was his understanding of inclusive politics, inclusive democratic process. Sometimes we don't understand. I mean, at least a person like me don't understand. It has taken a lot of time. The significance of universal adult suffrage. Then this was led to roundtable conference where the Simon Commission was discussed. Again boycotted by others, attended by Baba Sahib. Then the same plea of universal adult suffrage, apart from a representation to the depressed classes, quote unquote. He did not use the word Dalits or depressed classes. Then a federal scheme was contemplated. And this was followed by Government of India Act 1935, from which we have heavily borrowed for framing our constitution. And before that, I must make a mention that for the first time under 1935 Act, the Federal Court Unified Judiciary was thought of and a provision has been made. To the extent possible, the independent judiciary, about which I am always tempted to speak with a reference to the present situation, but I restrain myself and we will talk about it some other time. Then Cripps mission, the plan was announced on 16th May 1946, and ultimately the Simla conference that has led to the Indian Independence Act 1947. All of you are aware, and including the distinguished guests sitting on the dais. The bill which was introduced in Parliament, British Parliament on July 4th, was enacted with the royal assent on July 18th, 1947. It was to have effect from August 15th, 1947, what they call appointed day. The bill was introduced on July 4th, July 18th, discussion, enactment, royal assent. Such was the pressure from the people of India, which Professor Kodanram was speaking about. As long as people are alert, and as long as the people, you call, play the role of concerned citizens, Constitution is safe. I'll come to that aspect a little bit later. I have to say something about it, and I don't know. It is already 1:30. Maybe another 5-10 minutes, Mr. Lakshmi. Then many of us immediately do not recollect. The Constituent Assembly, which had first sat on 9th December 1946, that is even before the formation of India Independence Act, was the Cripps Mission, followed by Mountbatten Plan, where they have decided that one Constituent Assembly is not going to deliver the goods, they should have two Constituent Assemblies. It was assembled on 9th December 46, reassembled after the midnight of 14th August 1947. That is the formation of the Constituent Assembly. It's not possible to go into the process of constitution making. The effect of Indian Independence Act 1947 was abolition of sovereignty and the responsibility of the British Parliament. The Crown no longer the source of authority. Even before that, 25 years before that, Gandhi said, Swaraj will not be a free gift of the British Parliament. It will be a declaration of India's full self-expression. That it will be expressed through an act of Parliament is true, but it will be merely a courteous ratification of the declared wish of the people of India, even as it was in the case of Union of South Africa. Then I'll come to the constitution making in one or two sentences. The role played by Baba Saheb. The stress which he has undergone consumed him. And he used to fall very often sick, leading to his untimely death. People do not realize about it. How he championed each article, how he dealt with hundreds of opinions within the Constituent Assembly, all without any malice, with all good intentions, but sometimes without realizing the consequences of what they were pleading and what Baba Saheb advised by his intervention. One, of course, is November 48. Two last lectures are too well known, about which I don't make a mention. But one criticism was, you have made, Dr. Ambedkar, you have made it too long a constitution, providing too many details. Somebody said you have made a very short constitution without laying any roadmap for day-to-day administration of the country. Somebody said you have made it too flexible and amenable to amendments. Somebody said you have made it too rigid. answering all this, Baba Sahib made a classic statement. Whatever you may write, whatever you may incorporate, whatever may you articulate in the Constitution, as long as it in the hands of the right people, as long as it is operated by the people who believe in the idea of Constitution, it is safe. If it fails, not because any infirmity is in the Constitution, the expression used, because the man is wild. Man includes women also. We had that experience. And one very often not quoted, often not noticed, Baba Sahib said, one likes to ask whether there can be anything new in a constitution framed at this hour in the history of the world. Posing question to himself, answering in the debate. More than 100 years have rolled when the first written constitution was drafted. Perhaps he was referring to the United States Constitution. It has been followed by many other countries reducing their constitution to writing. Given these facts, all constitutions in their main provisions must look similar. The only new things, if there be any, in a constitution framed so late in the day are the variations made to remove the faults and to accommodate it to the needs of the country. That is how the Constitution has emerged. So, when these people, very respectable, distinguished in their own right, when they speak about our ideology, which remained unimplemented for 75 years, what is that ideology they are speaking about? Are they aware of this constitutional and political developments leading to the enactment of the Constitution? I was reading with a lot of interest an article recently published by a leading social scientist, Suhas Palsekar. All of you, I think those who are sitting here may have read it. I don't know others. He said, in between two Indian states. One Indian state which is represented by the Constitution, and another state which is represented by, quote unquote, our ideology. He straight away speaks. It's not my speech, I'm only quoting him. Don't attribute it to me. Recently, the RSS chief underlined his view that India got its true independence only on the Ram temple at Ayodhya was consecrated. With the clout that he enjoys not only among the RSS cadres, but also among many outsiders who have discovered virtue in paying obeisance to the organization and chief, this edict about the formation of a true Indian state on January 22nd last year will undoubtedly be taken seriously in many quarters. Juxtaposed with that, this week also witnesses commemoration of the day on which Indian Republic was formed in 1950. Then ultimately says, it's a lengthy article. Is this a case of duality of our collective personality? Why is there no fight back from the constitutional republic? This one issue just now was told to us by Professor Kodandra. Why is the constitutional state not repudiated squarely? It means why the other instruments of constitution are not responding to this dilemma. It may include the parliament. It may include my fraternity. Executive, we don't have to talk about it because they say who say this is our ideology. The question alerts us. The complex moment our national life currently experiences. We live in the midst of two state systems. It's frightening to read and realize the consequences. The new one is long born and roams aggressively. The old one is not declared dead yet. This is the danger. The new one is the Republic, Indian Republic. Old one is, it is 100-year-old. I don't have to speak about it. Would the Constitution survive by itself? We being silent spectators, we live under notions. चलो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन तो है, देखते हैं क्या होता. Again, Baba Sahib said, you don't have to amend the constitution to break it. You can wreck it by your administrative measures. One seasoned administrator is sitting here. I don't know whether he is nodding his head in agreement or differing with it, I don't know. Another seasoned administrator is sitting. How the administration can wreck the constitution without amending the constitution. This is said in 1950. I don't think I will take 1 hour 59 minutes to speak on the Constitution. All of you know who took that 1 hour 59 minutes to speak on the Constitution. Lincoln's second inaugural was 11 minutes. Trump's inaugural was 59 minutes. His second inaugural. Nowadays, we are all tuned to gear up to hear at least 1.5 hour lecture. With all sorts of rhetorical flourishes. When somebody claps, I asked him, why are you clapping? He spoke very well, sir. What did he speak? ఏమో సార్ తెలియదు. అంటే మోహ భాష. The rhetoric you are carried away and you never care to look into the substance and the implications and the dangers inbuilt into such lectures. I'll briefly touch upon, the habit of making notes. Kodanram yesterday left me at about 7:30, making me to write whatever I could speak with you, sitting up to 1 a.m. in the night. The framers of our constitution were deeply mindful of the vulnerabilities of a new and untried political order. That's why I began with that. We are into that untried political order. An experiment that greatly depended on the confidence of the citizenry to succeed. So they did their best to argue from the start that their handiwork was not wholly new, but based on time-tested ideas rooted in the soil of antiquity. That's why I was referring from 1857 independence struggle and mutiny, whatever you call it. Founding generations and many that followed it tried to literally cement a sense of perpetuity to the enterprise. Today we have come to assume the permanence of our political institutions, and that assumption creates alarming vulnerabilities in two principal forms. The first is casual indifference, a political order that appears to many as permanent, for better or worse, seems beyond their personal ability to do damage. To some extent, the freedom of indifference is a great virtue of liberal democracies, where citizens can choose to devote their days to the private affairs of home and market, blissfully unmindful of politics. अरे छोड़ो भाई, ये अपनी बात की बस नहीं. Politics will disappear. Politics is nothing but part of democratic process. How can we be indifferent to it? And our indifference has taken us to this stage. But this liberty becomes dangerous when citizens tune completely out of public affairs, but for an occasional visit to the polling booth. It would lead to electionocracy. From democracy, you will degenerate it into electionocracy. Again, based in part on the assumption that their democratic inheritance is set in stone. As if it is carved in stone. You go to the polling booth, you exercise your vote. I'm not going into the complexities of voting and results, the role played by the election commissions. It's not necessary to go into that. Yet anyone engaged in political demolition without regard to the fragility of the enterprise is at risk of taking down a load-bearing wall. Load-bearing wall is the Constitution. Long before, this is one of my favorite lecture, therefore I will quote one or two sentences from that and take your leave. I know I am taxing you. but I wish I could have more time to tax you further. Long before he became the greatest reformer in American history, Lincoln delivered a major address to the Young Men's Lyceum in Springfield, Illinois, which is titled The Perpetuation of Our Political Institutions. Lincoln had grown worried that the nation of his youth had changed. We're all worried about that now, what we see. Look at the audience. Where do we find them? We are speaking amongst ourselves. He feared the mutual affection of his countrymen, which had once tied them together in common cause, had disappeared, leaving anger and discontent. Passion has helped us. Lincoln observed of the founding period, but can do so no more. It will be in future be our enemy. What is that would be our enemy? The passion, which you and I witness every day. That is the stage where we have reached. In response, Lincoln has counseled reason, quote unquote, cold, calculating, unimpassioned reason. It means a lecture or a speech or a talk dehearts the rhetorical flourishes. I don't refer to any individual. All of you, it is left all up to each one of you to understand. The ultimate aim, Lincoln said, was to secure a reverence for the Constitution and the laws. That reverence was the predicate for all the changes he later wrought in America. So the first step away which we have to take from the dangers of that passion and towards the reasoned reverence and simple recognition that perpetuation of our constitutional institutions is not assured, and that our constitutional order has been more fragile than we have recently been led to understand and believe. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your forbearance. Now it is over to my fellow citizens of India, that is Bharat. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Of our legal luminaries. I think now I request second session. I request Limbadri sir to chair the session, and Rajshekar Undru and Soren, Madhavrao garu, Ramchandramurthy garu will speak. It will conclude in 2:30. We will go to lunch 2:30. Please bear with us. Then other two sessions will after lunch. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Limbadri garu. సార్ మీకు థ్యాంక్స్ చెప్తే తప్పవుతుందేమని చెప్పండి. వన్ రమణ గారు he wants to come on dais to something. Sir, please stay. Why are you? ఎందుకు లేస్తున్నారు? 2:30 వరకు మీ సెషన్ కంటిన్యూ చేద్దాం. ప్లీజ్ కూర్చోండి, అందరు కూర్చోండి దయచేసి, ఎవరు లేవద్దు. కానివ్వండి కూర్చోండి సార్, మీరు కానివ్వండి.
అమ్మగారు ఎక్కడున్నా రావాలి.
సార్ గుడ్ ఆఫ్టర్నూన్ ఎవ్రీవన్. అందరికీ నమస్కారం. నాకు తెలుసు లంచ్ టైంలో డిస్కషన్ చాలా టఫ్ టైం అని, అయినప్పటికీ కూడా మనకున్న నిబద్ధత ఆకలిని కూడా ఆపి సమావేశాన్ని విజయవంతం చేస్తుందని అనుకుంటున్నాను. వీఆర్ సెలబ్రేటింగ్ ది ఇండియన్ రిపబ్లిక్ డే, భారత రాజ్యాంగ దినోత్సవాన్ని ఒక సంబరంగా జరుపుకోవటం అనేది చాలా సంతోషకరమైనటువంటి సందర్భం. భారతదేశంలో ఉన్నటువంటి ప్రజలు ఏదైనా పండుగను బాగా జరుపుకోవాలి అని అంటే ఈ దేశంలో ఉన్న ఒకే ఒక పండుగ, అది భారత రాజ్యాంగం అమల్లోకి వచ్చినటువంటి జనవరి 26, 1950ని గుర్తుపెట్టుకోవాలి. అంతకంటే మించిన పండుగ, అంతకంటే గొప్ప సందర్భము ఈ భారతదేశంలో లేదు. ఎందుకంటే భారతదేశానికి వచ్చినటువంటి ఈ రాజ్యాంగం గతంలో ఉన్నటువంటి రాజ్యాంగాన్ని రిపీల్ చేసి అంతకంటే ముందున్నటువంటి మనుధర్మ శాస్త్రాన్ని రిపీల్ చేస్తూ అసమానతల్ని తొలగిస్తూ సమానత్వాన్ని సాధించడానికి ప్రజలందరికీ సర్వహక్కులు ఇచ్చినటువంటి గొప్ప రాజ్యాంగం భారత రాజ్యాంగం. ఆ దశలో కనుక మనం పరిశీలిస్తే నేను ఈ సందర్భంగా ఒక 2 విషయాలు చెప్పి వక్తల్ని ఆహ్వానిస్తాను. ఒకటి, నేను యాక్చువల్గా ఒక పేపర్ ప్రజెంట్ చేయాలనిపించింది. ఎడ్యుకేషన్లో ఉన్నటువంటి అచీవ్మెంట్స్ ఏంటి ఇన్ ద కాంటెక్స్ట్ ఆఫ్ ది ఇండియన్ కాన్స్టిట్యూషన్ అనే విషయంలో. భారత రాజ్యాంగం ఎందుకు అంత గొప్ప పండుగ అంటే, ఒకవేళ భారత రాజ్యాంగం కనుక వచ్చి ఉండకపోయి ఉంటే, బాబాసాహెబ్ అంబేద్కర్ కనుక అంత గొప్ప రాజ్యాంగాన్ని నిర్మించి ఉండకపోయి ఉంటే, మనం అందరం ఇలాంటి కూర్చునే వాళ్ళం కాదు, ఇలాంటి సభలు జరుపుకునే వాళ్ళం కాదు, ఈ పొజిషన్స్ చేసే వాళ్ళం కాదు అని నేను అనుకుంటున్నాను. కాబట్టి ఆ కాంటెక్స్ట్లో అది రావడానికి కారణం ఏంటంటే, భారత రాజ్యాంగంలో ఉన్నటువంటి అనేక అంశాలు, అది ప్రియాంబుల్ కావచ్చు, డైరెక్టివ్ ప్రిన్సిపల్స్ కావచ్చు, అనేక రకాల ఆర్టికల్స్ కావచ్చు, అవన్నీ ఏం చేసినాయి, భారత రాజ్యాంగాన్ని రాకంటే ముందు అంటరానితనం అనేది ఆమోదయోగ్యమైనటువంటిది. భారత రాజ్యాంగం వచ్చిన తర్వాత, ఆర్టికల్ 17 వచ్చిన తర్వాత అంటరానితనం అనేది రద్దు చేయబడి అంటరానితనం నేరం అని చెప్పగలిగినారు. అలాంటి అనేక సమానత్వానికి సంబంధించినటువంటి ఈ కాంటెక్స్ట్లో ఎడ్యుకేషన్కి సంబంధించినటువంటి అంశాలు కూడా చాలా వచ్చినాయి. అందులో మనం కనుక పరిశీలిస్తే ఇప్పుడున్నటువంటి కాంటెక్స్ట్లో మనందరికీ చాలా ముఖ్యమైనటువంటి అంశం ఎడ్యుకేషన్కి సంబంధించి మనందరికి కూడా ఒక కాన్స్టిట్యూషనల్ ఫౌండేషన్స్ ఉన్నాయి. మనందరికి కూడా అఫర్మేటివ్ పాలసీస్ వచ్చినాయి. ఈ కాన్స్టిట్యూషనల్ ఫౌండేషన్స్, అఫర్మేటివ్ పాలసీసు, ఆర్టికల్స్ అన్నిటిని దృష్టిలో పెట్టుకొని 75 ఏళ్ల ప్రయాణంలో కనుక మనం పరిశీలిస్తే ఏ మేరకు సాధించినాం, ఏ రకమైనటువంటి ఛాలెంజెస్ మనకు ఉన్నాయి అనేటువంటిది కనుక చూస్తే, ఇప్పటికీ కొంత భారత రాజ్యాంగం వల్ల
చాలామంది చదువుకోగలిగినాం. నాలాంటి వాడు మీ ముందు మాట్లాడుతున్నాడంటే ఆ రోజు భారత రాజ్యాంగం రావటం, భారత రాజ్యాంగంలో పొందుపరిచినటువంటి అనేక సౌకర్యాలు, అది ఎస్టాబ్లిష్మెంట్ ఆఫ్ పబ్లిక్ యూనివర్సిటీస్ కావచ్చు, లేదా హాస్టల్స్ కావచ్చు, రెసిడెన్షియల్ స్కూల్స్ కావచ్చు, స్కాలర్షిప్స్ కావచ్చు, ఫెలోషిప్స్ కావచ్చు, వీటన్నిటి ద్వారా ఎంతో కొంతమంది నాలాంటి వాళ్ళు మీలాంటి వాళ్ళు ఇంత దూరం ప్రయాణం చేయగలిగి చదువుకొని కొన్ని పొజిషన్ చేయగలుగుతున్నాం. ఛాలెంజ్ ఏంటంటే ఇంత కాన్స్టిట్యూషనల్ సపోర్ట్ ఫౌండేషన్స్ వచ్చినప్పటికి కూడా భారతదేశంలో రాజ్యాంగం వచ్చిన నాటికి ఉన్నటువంటి జీఆర్ గ్రాస్ ఎన్రోల్మెంట్ రేషియోని కనుక చూస్తే దెర్ వాజ్ ఓన్లీ 1% ఆఫ్ జీఆర్. భారతదేశానికి స్వతంత్రం వచ్చిన తర్వాత ఈరోజు 2020-21 గ్రాస్ ఎన్రోల్మెంట్ రేషియో కనుక చూస్తే 28.4. ఇది ఒక గొప్ప పరిణామంగా దేశంలో ఆ రోజు ఒక 20 యూనివర్సిటీలు ఉంటే ఈరోజు దాదాపు 1200 విశ్వవిద్యాలయాలు వచ్చినాయి. ఆ రోజు విశ్వవిద్యాలయాలతో పాటు కళాశాలలు కూడా చాలా పరిమితంగా ఉండేవి, కానీ ఈరోజు కళాశాలలు కూడా విపరీతంగా వచ్చినాయి. ఈ కాంటెక్స్ట్లో ఏం పెరిగింది మనకు అని అంటే ఒక 1200 వరకు యూనివర్సిటీలు వచ్చినా, మనకు వేల సంఖ్యలో కాలేజీలు వచ్చినా ఏం జరిగింది, ఏం జరగాల్సి ఉన్నది అనేటువంటి ఒక ప్రశ్నను మనం వేసుకోవాల్సి ఉంటుంది. ఈ కాంటెక్స్ట్లో ఇప్పుడు మనందరికీ ఉన్నటువంటి ఒక గొప్ప ఛాలెంజ్ కనుక పరిశీలిస్తే, ఒకటి ఈ గ్రాస్ ఎన్రోల్మెంట్ రేషియో పెరిగిందని అనిపించినప్పటికి కూడా మన పిల్లలకు ఎదుర్కొంటున్నటువంటి సమస్యలు కనుక చూస్తే ఈ రాజ్యాంగం మనకు యాక్సెస్ ఇచ్చింది పబ్లిక్ ఇన్స్టిట్యూషన్స్లో. ఈ రాజ్యాంగం మనందరికీ కూడా సౌకర్యాలు ఇస్తుంది. అయినప్పటికీ కూడా మెజారిటీ ఇన్స్టిట్యూషన్స్ 80% ఇన్స్టిట్యూషన్స్ ప్రైవేట్ రంగంలో ఉన్నాయి. ఈరోజు ఉన్నత విద్యా రంగంలో 20% మాత్రమే పబ్లిక్ సెక్టార్లో ఉన్నాయి, 80% ప్రైవేట్ సెక్టార్లో ఉన్నాయి. ప్రైవేట్ సెక్టార్లో ఉన్నటువంటి వాటికి యాక్సెస్ లేదు. ప్రైవేట్ సెక్టార్లో ఉన్నటువంటి ఇన్స్టిట్యూషన్స్లో రిజర్వేషన్స్ లేవు. ఆ రోజు యూజీసీ యాక్ట్ రూపొందిస్తున్నప్పుడు జరిగినటువంటి హయ్యర్ ఎడ్యుకేషన్ నియంత్రణలో ప్రైవేట్లో కూడా రిజర్వేషన్స్ ఉంటే బాగుంటుందని చేశారు. 2009లో యూపీఏ గవర్నమెంట్ కూడా ఆర్టికల్ 93 కూడా ఒక అమెండ్మెంట్ ప్రపోజ్ చేసి ప్రైవేట్లో రిజర్వేషన్ పెడితే బాగుంటుంది అని. అది లేకపోతే ఇప్పుడు ఎంత పెట్టినా కూడా ఈ పిల్లలకు ప్రైవేట్లో ఏ రకమైనటువంటి యాక్సెసిబిలిటీ దొరకది. అది మనం ఈరోజు చర్చించాల్సినటువంటి ముఖ్యమైనటువంటి అంశం. 80% ఎడ్యుకేషన్స్లో ఈ మార్జినలైజ్ సెక్షన్స్కి యాక్సెస్ అనేటువంటిది తగ్గిపోతున్నది అనేటువంటిది గుర్తుపెట్టుకోండి. రెండవ ఛాలెంజ్ ఏంటంటే పబ్లిక్ ఇన్స్టిట్యూషన్స్కి ఫండింగ్ అనేటువంటిది చాలా తగ్గిపోయింది. పబ్లిక్ ఇన్స్టిట్యూషన్స్లో టీచర్స్ రిక్రూట్మెంట్ అనేటువంటిది లేదు. పబ్లిక్ ఇన్స్టిట్యూషన్స్లో ఇన్ఫ్రాస్ట్రక్చర్ ఫెసిలిటీ లేదు. పబ్లిక్ ఇన్స్టిట్యూషన్స్లో ఎంప్లాయబుల్ ఆపర్చునిటీస్ లేవు. ఈ కాంటెక్స్ట్లో మనము చదువు ద్వారానే కొంత సాధించవచ్చు. చదువు ద్వారానే డాక్టర్ బాబాసాహెబ్ అంబేద్కర్ గొప్పవాడయ్యి భారత రాజ్యాంగాన్ని ఇచ్చి మనందరికీ ఇన్ని రకాల హక్కులని అవకాశాలని ఇవ్వగలిగినప్పుడు ఆ చదువులు ఈ సమాజానికి దూరం అయితే ఏమవుతుందనేటువంటి ఒక ప్రశ్నను మనం అందరం వేసుకోవాల్సినటువంటి సందర్భంగా నేను భావిస్తాను. ఇప్పుడు డే టు డే ఇంత యాక్సెస్ వచ్చినప్పటికి కూడా ఇప్పటికీ పిల్లలకు ఏ కోర్సులో చదువుతున్నారు అనేది కూడా డౌట్. రూరల్ నుంచి ఫస్ట్ పర్సన్ ఇన్ ద ఫ్యామిలీ నుంచి వచ్చినటువంటి వాళ్లకు ఏ కోర్సులో చదువుకోవాలి, ఏ రకమైన కోర్సు చదివితే ఉద్యోగ అవకాశాలు ఉంటాయి, ఏ ఇన్స్టిట్యూషన్లో చదివితే మాకు మంచి భవిష్యత్తు ఉంటుంది అనేటువంటి సమాచారం కూడా లేదు. మీడియం ఆఫ్ ఇన్స్ట్రక్షన్ కూడా ప్రాబ్లంగా ఉంటుంది. కల్చరల్ ఈకో సిస్టమ్ కూడా ప్రాబ్లంగా ఉంటుంది. వాటన్నిటిని కూడా మనం ఒక డెమోక్రటిక్ స్పేస్లో అంబేద్కర్ కోరుకున్నటువంటి, అంబేద్కర్ గురువు అయినటువంటి జాన్ డూవే గారు చెప్పినటువంటి ఒక డెమోక్రటైజేషన్ ఆఫ్ ఎడ్యుకేషన్ని ఎంత విజువలైజ్ చేయగలిగితే అంత మంచిది అని నేను భావిస్తున్నా. ఈ కాంటెక్స్ట్లో తెలంగాణకు సంబంధించి ఒక ఎక్స్పెరిమెంట్ జరిగింది. ఒక ఎక్స్పెరిమెంట్, అద్భుతమైనటువంటి ఎక్స్పెరిమెంట్ ఏం జరిగింది అని అంటే రెండే విషయాలు చెప్తాను మీకు. ఒకటి, నేను ఉన్నత విద్యా మండలిలో కానీ ఇతర అవకాశాల్లో చూసినప్పుడు ఈ విద్యార్థులకు యాక్సెసిబిలిటీ చాలా స్టూడెంట్ ఫ్రెండ్లీగా చేయాలి అంటే ఏం చేస్తే బాగుంటుందని అనుకున్నప్పుడు వి ఇంట్రడ్యూస్డ్ దోస్త్, డిఓఎస్టి దోస్త్, స్నేహితుడు అని అర్థం. ఆ దోస్త్ అనేటువంటిది పెట్టడం వల్ల 200 రూపాయల రిజిస్ట్రేషన్స్తో ఈ రాష్ట్రంలో ఉన్న 1040 డిగ్రీ కళాశాలలో అప్లికేషన్ పెట్టుకోవడానికి, అడ్మిషన్ పొందడానికి అవకాశం కలిగించేటువంటి ఒక పద్ధతి పెట్టాం. అది మొబిలిటీని తగ్గించింది. ఏ కాలేజీకి గతంలో ప్రతి కాలేజీకి వెళ్ళి అప్లికేషన్ కొనుక్కొని మళ్ళీ సబ్మిట్ చేసి లిస్ట్ చూసుకునేటువంటి అవసరం లేకుండా ఇంట్లో నుంచి ఫోన్ ద్వారా జస్ట్ దేర్ మొబైల్ దే కెన్ అప్లై అండ్ గెట్ ఇట్ డన్. అట్లా చేయటం వల్ల ఏమైందంటే ఎన్రోల్మెంట్ పెరగడానికి అవకాశం ఉంది. ముఖ్యంగా అమ్మాయిల ఎన్రోల్మెంట్ విపరీతంగా పెరిగింది. అది ఒక మంచి అవకాశంగా భావిస్తున్నాం. అట్లాగే స్టూడెంట్స్ చూస్తుంటాం, పిల్లలందరూ కూడా ఎక్కడన్నా వెళితే ఫారెన్ వెళ్ళారు, ఏదో ఉద్యోగం వచ్చింది, వాళ్ళ సర్టిఫికేట్ వెరిఫై చేయాలంటే దైనందిన జీవితంలో చాలా కష్టం. ఎవరినో తెలిసిన వాళ్ళు అడగాలి, ఆఫీసర్ల దగ్గరికి వెళ్ళాలి, ఎగ్జామినేషన్ బ్రాంచ్కి వెళ్ళాలి. అటువంటి సమస్యల్ని కూడా అధిగమించడానికి స్టూడెంట్ ఎకడమిక్ వెరిఫికేషన్ సర్వీస్ అని కౌన్సిల్ వెబ్సైట్లో పెట్టాం. ఎనీబడి ఎనీ టైమ్ ఫ్రమ్ ఎనీవేర్ దే కెన్ వెరిఫై ది క్రెడెన్షియల్స్ ఆఫ్ ఎనీ స్టూడెంట్. ద సింపుల్, వితౌట్ ఛార్జింగ్ ఎ సింగిల్ పైన్. అలాంటి సౌకర్యాలు పెంచడం వల్ల మనకి ఈజీ అయింది. కాబట్టి అట్లా అనేక సౌకర్యాల్ని విద్యార్థులకు పెంచగలిగితే విద్యార్థుల యొక్క ఎన్రోల్ మెరుగుపడుతుంది. వీటన్నిటికంటే ముఖ్యమైనది లాస్ట్ మాట నేనేం చెప్పాలనుకున్నా అంటే, ఈ దేశంలో మనకు ఎస్సీ ఎస్టీ అట్రాసిటీస్ ప్రివెన్షన్ యాక్ట్ అయింది. ఆ యాక్ట్ రావడానికి ఇక్కడ ఉన్నటువంటి చాలామంది తెలుగు ప్రజల యొక్క ఉద్యమం, ఆకాంక్ష వల్ల వచ్చింది. రెండవది ఎస్సీ ఎస్టీ సప్లాన్ యాక్ట్. సప్లాన్ యాక్ట్ తెచ్చినందుకు మల్లెపల్లి లక్ష్మయ్య గారు కానీ, రామచంద్రమూర్తి గారు కానీ, కాకి మాధవరావు గారు కానీ, రాజశేఖర్ ఉండ్రు గారు వీళ్ళందరికీ మనం చప్పట్ల ద్వారా కృతజ్ఞతలు చెప్పాలి. ఏం జరిగింది అని అంటే, మనం అనుకుంటున్నాం ఏ చట్టం తెస్తే ఏమవుతుంది, ఏమి కాలేదు కదా అని అనుకుంటాం. సప్లాన్ వల్ల ఈ దేశంలో ఎక్కడ లేనంత మార్పు తెలంగాణ రాష్ట్రంలో విద్యారంగంలో జరిగిందని చెప్పడానికి నాకు చాలా సంతోషంగా ఉంది. ఏంటి ఆ మార్పు అంటే, మీకు ఇంతకుముందు చెప్పినట్టుగా భారతదేశంలో గ్రాస్ ఎన్రోల్మెంట్ రేషియో 28.4 ఉంటే తెలంగాణ గ్రాస్ ఎన్రోల్మెంట్ రేషియో 40%. అది పక్కకు పెడదాం. ఎస్సీస్ గ్రాస్ ఎన్రోల్మెంట్ రేషియో ఇండియాలో 26% ఉంటే తెలంగాణలో ఎస్సీ గ్రాస్ ఎన్రోల్మెంట్ రేషియో 42.9. కాబట్టి ఇదంతా ఎట్లా సాధ్యమైంది అని అంటే, మనము ఎస్సీ ఎస్టీ సప్లాన్ సాధించుకోవటం వల్ల, రెసిడెన్షియల్ ఇన్స్టిట్యూషన్స్ రావటం వల్ల, స్కాలర్షిప్ రావటం వల్ల మన గ్రాస్ ఎన్రోల్మెంట్ రేషియో భారతదేశంలోనే అందరికంటే ఎక్కువ ఉండగలిగింది. కాబట్టి ఈ సందర్భంగా మనం సప్లాన్ సాధించుకున్నట్టుగానే ప్రైవేటు విద్యా సంస్థల్లో కూడా రిజర్వేషన్ సాధించడానికి ప్రయత్నం చేయడానికి ఇలాంటి సమావేశం ఎంతో దోహదపడుతుందని, ఈ చర్చలు ఇక్కడ ఉన్నటువంటి మేధావులందరూ ఆలోచించి సరి అయినటువంటి ప్రతిపాదనలతో ముందుకొచ్చి డిబేట్ చేయగలిగితే, ఇప్పటికే యూపీఏ గవర్నమెంట్ గతంలో పార్లమెంట్ అమెండ్మెంట్ ప్రపోజ్ చేయడం జరిగింది. యూజీసీలో డిబేట్లో దాన్ని రికమెండ్ చేసి ఉన్నది. కాబట్టి ప్రజల ఆకాంక్షల్ని సాధించడం అనేటువంటిది సాధ్యమవుతుందని నేను భావిస్తూ, ఈ చక్కటి అవకాశంలో లంచ్ టైంలో కూడా ఓపికతో మీరు వింటున్నందుకు మీ అందరికీ పేరు పేరున కృతజ్ఞతలు తెలియజేస్తూ, ఇప్పుడు డాక్టర్ రాజశేఖర్ ఉండ్రు గారిని మాట్లాడాల్సిందిగా విజ్ఞప్తి చేస్తాను.
सभी को जय भीम। आज इस नेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस जो है 75 सालाना भारत का संविधान के उपलक्ष्य में हम अब सामाजिक न्याय ऊपर हम एक असेसमेंट के रूप में आज एकत्रित हुए हैं। मैं शुक्रगुजार हूं सेंटर फॉर दलित स्टडीज़ और उनके साथ सारे अनुबंध संस्थाओं आज मुझे ये मौका दिया। मंच पर उपस्थित हमारे सीनियर काकी माधवराव जी, रामचंद्र मूर्ति जी और एडवोकेट रजनी सोरेन जी और सभी मेरे दोस्त, आज का जो विषय है हमारे सामने जो रखा है बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण विषय है। 75 साल में हम हर एक मुद्दे पे मुड़ के पीछे देख सकते हैं, क्या हमें पाए क्या खोए 75 सालों में, बट एक संविधान हमारे साथ खड़ा है, हम संविधान के साथ खड़े हैं। मेरा विषय जो आपके सामने, जैसे लिम्बाद्री साहब, जो प्रोफेसर लिम्बाद्री जी आज के इस मंच का चेयर है, उन्होंने ये कहा कि एजुकेशन के बारे में हम कहाँ तक पहुँचे। इस विषय में थोड़ा सा पीछे आपको मैं जो दलित उन दिनों में जो अनटचेबल्स हैं उनके लिए एक स्कॉलरशिप की व्यवस्था मैं आपको उस समय तक ले जाना चाहता हूं जहां 1932 में डॉक्टर B.R. अम्बेडकर ने जो पूना पैक्ट के तहत उन्होंने पहली ये अचीवमेंट करे हैं कि जो ट्रेजरी के ऊपर पहली राइट जो हक जो बनता है वो अनटचेबल्स या डिप्रेस क्लास उन दिनों को कहते हैं, उनके स्कॉलरशिप के लिए। अगर 1932 में जब ये निर्णय हुआ था पूना पैक्ट के तहत, फिर भी ये इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं हो पाया था। 1944 में 1944 में बाबा साहब जब वाइसरॉयज एग्जीक्यूटिव काउंसिल में वो मेंबर थे, उन्होंने वाइसरॉय के सामने जाके कहा कि ये पूना पैक्ट के तहत जब ये निर्णय हो गया था कि एजुकेशन में हमें सुविधाएं प्राप्त होंगे, ये नहीं हो पाया था। तो जो 1942 में 1942 1944 में पहली बार जो स्कॉलरशिप के तहत यहाँ बहुत लोग यहाँ जो पढ़ाई किए, हमारे पिछले जनरेशन में जो पढ़ाई किए, काकी माधवराव साहब, सुखदेव थोराट साहब, जिस स्कॉलरशिप के साथ पोस्ट मैट्रिक स्कॉलरशिप हमारे जो आज के दिन मिला है वो संविधान से पहले ही हमें हासिल हुआ था। 1944 में उसका नाम था पोस्ट मैट्रिक स्कॉलरशिप। वो आज के दिन में हमें उपलब्ध है। वो बाबा साहब अम्बेडकर के दूरदर्शी उन्हें हमें ये प्राप्त हुआ था। जैसे हम आते हैं संविधान, जब संविधान बना था बाबा साहब ने ये अनुच्छेद 15 आर्टिकल 15 के तहत उन्होंने सोचा था ऑटोमेटिकली हमें दो चीज़ें प्राप्त होंगे। वो एक रिजर्वेशन इन एडमिशन, जब आपको किसी एजुकेशन संस्था में एडमिशन लेना था तो आपको ऑटोमेटिकली मिलेगा। और ऑफ कोर्स दूसरी चीज़ था स्कॉलरशिप। वो उन्होंने डायरेक्टिव प्रिंसिपल्स ऑफ स्टेट पॉलिसी में आर्टिकल 46 के तहत उन्होंने बनाए थे। बट सबसे पहली चैलेंज जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को मिला था वो और किसी से नहीं मिला था, सुप्रीम कोर्ट से ही मिला था। कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के सबसे पहले चैलेंज, क्योंकि ये जो हम 75 साल में पीछे मुड़ के हम आगे क्या करना, पीछे क्या हुआ ये देखते हैं, उसमें हमें कई बार संविधान पीठ जो सर्वोच्च न्यायालय में जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट में हमें मिलता है वो कई बार संविधान को इंटरप्रेट करने लगते हैं। जो हम आज के दिन असेसमेंट कर रहे हैं वो भी असेसमेंट करते हैं। जब मुद्दे संविधान पीठ को सुप्रीम कोर्ट में मिलता है, हाई कोर्ट्स में मिलता है, उन दिनों में सबसे पहली चैलेंज डॉक्टर B.R. अम्बेडकर ने जो संविधान बनाए थे आर्टिकल 15 में, वो चैलेंज सुप्रीम कोर्ट से ही मिला था। उन्होंने ये करार किया था कि जो एडमिशन में जो रिजर्वेशन मिलता है जो एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशन में, उन्होंने उसको सेट असाइड कर दिया चंपकम दराय राजन नाम के केस में। सो बाबा साहब अम्बेडकर बहुत ही नाराज हुए, बहुत ही गुस्से हुए। उन्होंने जब अमेंडमेंट मूव किया था, द फर्स्ट एवर अमेंडमेंट टू कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, सबसे पहले अमेंडमेंट उन्होंने मूव किया था, वो ऑमनीबस अमेंडमेंट था। उसमें एक अमेंडमेंट ये था कि आर्टिकल 15 को एक सब सेक्शन 4 उन्होंने आर्टिकल 15(4) दिए थे, जिसमें उन्होंने स्पेशल प्रावधान किया था। क्लियरली लिखना पड़ा उनको कि शेड्यूल कास्ट और शेड्यूल ट्राइब्स के लिए एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशन के रिजर्वेशन के प्रावधान। ये एक प्रोग्रेस है हमारे संविधान में, क्योंकि संविधान में 15 का जो आर्टिकल 15 का जो प्रावधान किया था उसके एक प्रोग्रेस है। तो संविधान हमें ये दिखाता है, अगर हम संविधान के जो हक हमें आगे ले जाना है, वो प्रोविजंस, वो सेक्शंस, जैसे आर्टिकल 15 है, आर्टिकल 16 है, आर्टिकल 335 है एंड आर्टिकल 46 है, जो डायरेक्टिव्स एंड प्रिंसिपल्स में इन हमें आगे ले जाने की एक मौका प्रदान करते हैं। तो हम अगर इसको इसी सेक्शन को आगे ले जाते हैं, कई साल बाद यूपीए सरकार 1 में एक और अमेंडमेंट हुआ था। वो अमेंडमेंट था आर्टिकल 15(5), जिसको कई लोग मंडल 2 के नाम से भी पुकारते हैं, जहां सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट इंस्टीट्यूशंस में रिजर्वेशन, एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशन में रिजर्वेशन की प्रावधान किया गया था। वो प्रावधान करते हुए हमारा जो पार्लियामेंट उन दिनों का, उन्होंने एक और प्रावधान किया था, जो अभी लिम्बाद्री साहब ने अपना वक्तव्य में बताए थे, कि प्राइवेट एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशन में अगर कोई स्टेट चाहे, स्टेट या सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट अगर चाहे, उसमें रिजर्वेशन की प्रावधान क्लियरली आज के दिन संविधान हमें देता है, हमें प्रोवाइड करता है वो जो अवेलेबिलिटी। क्या हम आगे अगर असेसमेंट 75 सालों में हम ये करना चाहेंगे, 75 ईयर्स में असेसमेंट करना चाहेंगे, हमें एक ये आर्टिकल जो 15 जो है, जो बाबा साहब ने पहले अमेंडमेंट ने करके हमें दिए थे, वो आगे हमें एक रास्ता, हमें एक मार्ग क्लियरली दर्शाता है कि हम रिजर्वेशन इन प्राइवेट एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशन में जा सकते हैं। उनमें ये प्रावधान बहुत ही क्लियरली किया था कि एक्सेप्ट माइनॉरिटी एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशंस, जो माइनॉरिटीज़ अपना एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशन बनाते हैं, उनमें रिजर्वेशन का प्रावधान नहीं दिया, बट वो माइनॉरिटी एजुकेशन इसके ऊपर है कि वो दे या ना दे। ये एक क्लियर कट हमें फ्यूचर के लिए एक चैलेंज है। अगर संविधान को हम आगे ले जाना चाहते हैं, उनके प्रोविजंस को अचीव करना चाहते हैं असेसमेंट के बाद, कि आर्टिकल 15(5) में जो हमें अवेलेबल है, आर्टिकल 15(5) बाद में एक और अमेंडमेंट किया था 2014 के बाद, इकोनॉमिकली वीकर सेक्शन नाम का एक समुदाय को भी रिजर्वेशन का प्रावधान उस आर्टिकल में किया गया था, फर्दर अमेंडमेंट करते हुए। मैं ब्रीफली ये असेसमेंट में एक ही मुद्दा आपके सामने आज रखना चाह रहा था, कि ये मुद्दा आपके सामने इसलिए रखा हूँ कि आगे जनरेशन्स के लिए, जैसे लिम्बाद्री साहब ने कहा 80% एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशन आज के दिन प्राइवेट सेक्टर में है, तो क्या हम उस हक को अचीव कर पाएंगे, आगे ले जा पाएंगे? इन्हीं बातों के साथ जय भीम और धन्यवाद।
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your wonderful, thought-provoking speech. Now I invite Advocate Rajneeshwaran.
Jai Bhim and Johar to everyone. So, very briefly, I want to, the topic given to me is Adivasis and the Constitution. So I want to discuss this in three parts. One is basically the question of resources, which is the core of the Adivasi question, where we stand in terms of where we were before the constitution came into place and where we are now 75 years after the constitution in terms of resources, uh, in terms of autonomy and in terms of control of resources of Adivasis. And the second part, and in the second bit, I want to talk about how in the conflict areas that we are talking about, where in the name of counterinsurgency, what is the status and what is the position of fundamental rights of people, Adivasi people living in these conflict areas. And thirdly is a new development that we've seen and that friends in Chhattisgarh are calling it, say, communalization of Pesa, of how even within the Adivasi community, how there is this growth of sectarian tendencies and how the Adivasi community is also being played by the majority community, and maybe there is a threat of an identical threat of a threat of an identical split in the Adivasi community itself. So speaking about the first part with respect to the question of correcting historical injustice in terms of control of resources. So if we speak about it historically, it goes back to 1855 with the Santhal rebellion, and then the Birsa Munda revolt, and then the Bhumkal Andolan in Bastar, all of which was essentially revolved around the question of nationalization of forests by the British, or the feudal system, the zamindari system brought into the tribal areas by the British. So through these revolts that we saw before independence, the British were forced to bring in some laws which essentially said that tribal land cannot be alienated, cannot be transferred to a non-tribal person. So that was the essence of what legal changes that we saw during the British. And then came the Constituent Assembly, and where, Jaipal Singh Munda essentially, if you look at what he essentially said was that in this, when we are coming together to make this country, what he said was that, we identify ourselves as being indigenous and we look at everybody else being outside. But now that we are coming together to make this country, we hope and we trust that the Adivasi question will be addressed. And he also did say that now that we are coming to make this country, to make this constitution, this may not be a time to fight and to say that whose interests, and to find that place in the constitution to secure each community's rights. So he completely said, and he reposed full faith in the Constituent Assembly, saying that we putting our faith in the Constituent Assembly, that and we trust and hope that the Adivasi question will be answered. So when you look at the Constitution, firstly there was Article 244 in the Constitution, which spoke about administration in scheduled areas, and you had the 5th schedule. The essence being essentially that in terms of resource control, special provisions could be made for Adivasis. So after that, what we saw after independence was that very few, each state has laws which prevented alienation, but very few regulations were made. And then over and above that, you still had the Land Acquisition Act of 1894 in place, and you had the Coal Bearing Act, you had the Mines and Minerals Act. So what in a sense, what you saw was that the principle of eminent domain was in place, and essentially what it said was, no matter what, Adivasi rights ek jagah par hai, but ultimately the state has ultimate power to acquire land for mining, linear projects, etc. So that struggle continued until the Panchayat Raj amendment that we saw. Then the PESA Act came in 1996 to implement the Panchayat Raj amendment. And in that, the Gram Sabha was given powers. However, the different states did not adopt PESA as it is, and in some states they did not make rules like we know. And then from 1996, we come down to 2006, where finally you had the Forest Rights Act being passed by Parliament, and where they said that this act was being brought to correct historical injustice, where people's common resources had been nationalized under the Indian Forest Act. So they said that, and it finally recognized that we are bringing in this law to correct historical injustice and recognize your individual and community forest rights. Now, even after that, so it's been so many laws in place, and then finally, and then again in 2013, the new Land Acquisition Act came. They made special provision for scheduled areas where they said that you need consent of the Gram Sabha. So they finally got consent. Now, again, in that consent clause, however, they kept certain projects outside. They said mining is not included, linear projects like railways, highways is not included. All of that was in place. But essentially, the 2006 law was considered to be the strongest because it said that the Gram Sabha has power to control its resources, and that is what the Supreme Court said in the Niyamgiri judgment, that ultimately it is the people who have the power to decide whether or not they accept a particular development project, whether or not they accept land acquisition. So that is how things stand as of now. However, after 2019, certain more changes were made, like mainly coal being the most contentious area, where they have amended the Mines and Minerals Act to say that now a private company, speaking about the model of development in the constitution, they've taken it further to say that a private company can take land and sell coal for profit, not just to produce power, which was earlier limited to electricity. So we've seen where the law has been going, and essentially it is going down the path where it's a full privatization model, where the law has been set clear, where your land can be taken away for that, and the Adivasi communities having had to pay for that. And that is with respect to different laws. So as of now, the law as it stands is the Gram Sabha has powers, but in practice, what has happened is that, as far as I know, you wouldn't find a single project where a Gram Sabha consent has taken place properly. I mean, there are cases, courts are flooded with cases with fake Gram Sabha, with misuse of powers. And what we also see is that somehow we got these laws made through the legislature, but when it comes to the executive and the bureaucracy, I mean, there is zero intention or to follow these laws and to actually ensure that protections given to tribal people are implemented. So that is with respect to question of resources. The second thing I was talking about was that when you look at these conflict areas, say for example Bastar or other places, it's a complete suspension of fundamental rights. I mean, there are no two ways about it. Your right to life, the number of extrajudicial killings, the allegations of extrajudicial killings that are taking place, the number of arrests that are taking place, and also the scuttling of any form of democratic protest against militarization that is taking place. It's a complete suspension of fundamental rights in these areas. And when we look to court, I think Justice Reddy was here. The only ray of hope that we saw some time back was in the Salva Judum judgment, wherein the Supreme Court outlawed the Salva Judum, and it spoke highly against violence that is being committed in these areas. After that, in a series of cases, the CBI has filed closure in a large number of extrajudicial killings. So we have really seen no justice when it comes to that. And so that is with respect to suspension of life and liberty under Article 2021 in these areas that we see. And the last part is what we've seen recently is the question of splitting the Adivasi community into, say, the opposition towards the converted Christian tribals was always there. Historically, there has been a demand of delisting, where they say that tribal Christians should not be given benefits of reservation, etc. But what we've seen now is a weaponization of the PESA, where they're saying that in the name of protecting tribal custom and culture, there has been this attempt to completely target tribal Christians, and a complete attempt to say that the biggest threat facing the Adivasi community is conversion. So what we're saying now, that in villages in Bastar, for example, there is a complete split in the community, and you may have heard of cases where people are not being allowed to bury their people, Christian people are not being allowed to bury their dead people in the community graveyards, and people are having to go up to the Supreme Court. So what they're essentially doing is that the majority community has somehow convinced the tribal people that you are essentially Hindu, and that essentially tribals are Hindu, and that any kind of a conversion to Christianity or any kind of a thing is seen as as a violation, or is seen as an attempt to harm or break tribal culture. So that is another thing that we're seeing, and what we're calling it, a lot of activist friends, the phrase that is being used is, it's a communalization of PESA, and it's a communalization of the tribal identity. So things do look very bleak, but I suppose it's up to civil society and it's up to people like us to keep raising these questions which face the tribal community across the country. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rajni Garu. Now I request to Sri Kaki Madhavrao Garu to address this gathering. Now I invite Dr. Ramchandra Murthy Garu.
Mahanbhavas on the dais and off the dais. Namaskar. But Rajsekar was talking about First Amendment. People are talking about First Amendment even today. They attempt to blame Nehru for restricting freedom of the press. So that was one of the provisions in the First Amendment. First Amendment was thought of because the courts were acting in the spirit and letter of the Constitution and negating many things that government did. They were not allowing Jagidari abolition. They were not allowing anything to be any welfare measures for Dalits or poor. And they were allowing everything to be published in the papers. You know, there is Ramesh Thapar, the elder brother of Pramila Thapar. He was running a magazine class Crossroads. It was banned in Madras. And it was done within a few months of adopting our constitution. We adopted our constitution on 26th January 1950. The magazine was banned in March. We went to court. It was banned because the magazine carried a story about an incident where the police have killed 22 communists in Salem court, Salem jail. That's why it was banned. So he went to Supreme Court. Supreme Court did not take years as it is taking today. Within 3 months, on May 26th, it gave a judgment saying that Ramesh Thapar was right. He has got every right to publish what he published. And there was another case in Delhi. This is Ramesh Thapar versus Madras State. There is another, Dinopadhyaya versus Delhi State. Their organizer is, organizer wrote a story on happenings in East Pakistan. That was also banned. The same Supreme Court upheld the organizer. So Nehru thought the days were different. In those days, in 1960s and 70s, 50s and 60s, the Supreme Court was acting as though they were safeguarding civil liberties. They were in the forefront of defending people who Nehru and others thought are violating the Constitution. So Nehru thought there should be some reasonable restrictions to press freedom. Ambedkar said there is no need for any separate article restricting press freedom because it is part of the freedom given to all citizens. So press also will have the same freedom. But Nehru thought in the interest of national integration, in the interest of friendly relations with neighboring countries, in the interest of social harmony, we should bring about some reasonable restrictions to be born on the press. So he did not do it alone. It was not the only case. He amended many articles, including Article 19. As he said, as Dr. Rajsekar said, amended Article 15, amended many more in the 374, 376 also. But many aspects were there in that amendment. It was not only meant for suppressing freedom of the press. Freedom of the press was not suppressed actually because of that amendment. Because of that amendment, the Supreme Court and other courts were given an opportunity to see things as they are and give judgment more earthy way. That's why it was not objected to by any professional organization then. No journalist union has objected to that amendment. Now, I was working at Bangalore in 1978. It was emergency. Indira Gandhi was contesting on Chikmagalur election. Indira Gandhi was contesting in Chikmagalur. Bhavana Venkatram was the Minister for Education here. He came to Bangalore. He asked me to accompany him to go to Chikmagalur to canvass or to be seen by Indira Gandhi or meet her. So we went there, we met, we toured for 2 days. And then while coming back, we met Indira Gandhi. He went to her and spoke for a few minutes and said, this young man, Mr. Murthy, is from Hyderabad. He's working in Bangalore for Indian Express Group, he said. I thought she will be very angry with me because Indian Express was fighting against emergency, fighting against Indira Gandhi rule. I was myself fighting under the leadership of Arun Shourie. But she was not angry. She was smiling and said, good luck, Mr. Murthy. Imagine the same situation with Modi. Sir, Narendra Modi is there. And somebody introduces me there saying that he is working for some paper which is fighting against you. Would he say good luck? Would not say. If you take the 10 years that have passed, the press has lost its freedom, the press has become docile, the press has lost its power. Now, if you write anything against the government, you'll be taken into custody and a lot of charges will be made, including anti-terrorist acts will be applied to you. Some journalists are languishing in jail. You know Kappan of Malayalam website. He was going to UP to report a rape case, rape of a Dalit girl. He was taken into custody. He was forced to be in jail for 2 years, 4 months for no fault of his. Congress-led India has made an announcement in 2023 saying that these following 14 journalists are to be banned by us. They should not be spoken to, they should not be given an interview. The list is led by Arnab Goswami and Navika Kumar and others. Arnab Goswami said it is a badge of honor for me. But most of the people agreed that they should be banned. But the organizations representing press, media, press and others have condemned the decision taken by the Congress party and other India members. That's a different thing. But if you look at the papers today, but for social media, we will not get any real news. What is happening, we don't know. Many things are not covered by the mainstream newspapers and mainstream news media. So, as a journalist who spent his life in journalism, I thought I should speak on journalism and the state of journalism today. But it is not time. I know you are very hungry. You will not pardon me if I take more time. I will speak, I will take some other occasion to speak about journalism and its state of affairs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your memories and experiences about the press and other things. Now I request Sri Kaki Madhavrao Garu to address this gathering.
సభకి నమస్కారం. మీ అటెన్షన్ అంతా మీ స్టమక్ మీద ఉంది, మీ చెవుల మీద లేదు ఇప్పుడు. సో ఐ వోంట్ ట్యాక్స్ యూ విత్ వాట్ ఐ వాంటెడ్ టు సే అదర్వైజ్. కాన్స్టిట్యూషన్ మనకి ఇచ్చిన హక్కుల గురించి, దానికి అంబేద్కర్ గారు చేసిన ఎఫర్ట్ని గురించి ఇప్పటి వరకు చాలామంది మాట్లాడారు. కాన్స్టిట్యూషన్ చెప్పింది ఏంటి, ఇప్పుడు జరుగుతున్నది ఏమిటి అనేది. ఎకనామిక్ ఈక్వాలిటీ గురించి ఐ వాంట్ టు స్పీక్ అబౌట్ ఇట్. ఎకనామిక్ ఈక్వాలిటీ ఎలా వస్తుంది? గవర్నమెంట్కి ట్యాక్సెస్ ద్వారా డబ్బు సంపాదిస్తారు, అది ప్రజల ఉపయోగం కోసం స్పెండ్ చేస్తుంటారు. ఇట్ కుడ్ బి the public facilities, it could be individual help like students being given scholarships, etc. Now, what is happening earlier, there was so much importance given to the reservations because there are many government jobs. But today, you hardly find a government institution advertising for new posts. And some of the states are clever. If some vacancies have to be filled, they are doing it on contract basis. So the government jobs are a disappearing species. Where are the jobs today? Now, every sector is being privatized. It is just not education, it's not just health, it's not roads. Even the defense department activities are being privatized. So if the jobs are in the private sector, what is the purpose of reservation in government jobs? You are addressing maybe 5%, 10% of total jobs through reservation. Now for me, it looks as though we have to give a very totally different interpretation to the word reservation. Now how does government, how do the private industries function? How do they create wealth? Wealth in such a manner that 10% of the people in India own 90% of the wealth. Now they make that money by the industries, by various other things like in hospitals and schools, colleges. Now, can they do all this without government support? A school has to be permitted by the government. A hospital has to be licensed by the government. And then, if they want to export something, import something, they have to give permission. Government has to give permission. So, private sector can do nothing without support, without facilities, sometimes free. So, the action now lies in asking for reservation in private sector. When some of us talked about it, they said we can't force the private sector to reserve jobs. It's their own organization. So it's not their own organization. It's an organization which is built by you, supported by you. The oxygen is coming from you. Now, natural resources should belong to everybody. That's what Ambedkar said in the Constitution. Now, can any private industry have activity without water, without land, without electricity? These are all public facilities which are helping them to start these things. So now, Mr. Lakshmaya, myself, and some of the colleagues sitting here, we had taken up a movement for reservation budget sub-plan. And it started in combined Andhra Pradesh, and people like Mr. Ramchandra Murthy have helped us with the press to get a lot of publicity. Any poor man's meetings are not covered in the press. But because of Mr. Ramchandra Murthy and Mr. Lakshmaya, who was himself a journalist, all our activities were publicized, and then we brought a lot of pressure on the government. Finally, we had sub-plan materializing. Now, after Andhra Pradesh, now there are some other states which have taken up this, which Mr. Lakshmaya has already mentioned. Since Andhra Pradesh, or the Telugu land now, it is 2 states, has taken the initiative for achieving this sub-plan, I suggest that we take up the movement for reservation in private sector. And unless we do that, we will not have any relief for the people from the marginalized communities. They are going to the schools and colleges, but after that what? I know from my own village, a person who has done MBA is doing sewing in my village. I and my daughter went and saw that man. MBA he has done, and then he's doing agriculture, coolies work. So I think we'll have to start that in a big way. And there's no person who can do much more than Mr. Lakshmaya. Most of you may not know, if Telangana state separation has happened, if the first 5 people have to be named, it will be one of them is Lakshmaya. Now, again, for the sub-plan, he's one of the first 5 people. With his initiative, connections, we would like to start this movement for reservation in private sector, and probably that's where we can partly undo the privatization policy. I will stop here and let you go for your lunch. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And you're making a new path to reservations in private sectors. Thank you, all the speakers. Now I request all of you to join with us in lunch. Lunch is in first floor.
Please don't take up, what is the lift. You can go with the stairs. So many people are there. Please leave the old people, and young people should go in stairs. Another thing, please cooperate. Everybody would have a lunch. అందరికీ అన్నం ఉంది, భోజనం ఉంది, తొందర పడొద్దు. ఒకరి తర్వాత ఒకరు మెల్లగా ప్లేట్లు తీసుకొని తినండి. దయచేసి డిసిప్లిన్ మస్ట్. ఒకరి మీద ఒకరు పడకండి. ఒకరు ముందు నిల్చున్నారంటే మళ్ళీ ఒకరు వెళ్ళి వెనక నిల్చోండి ప్లీజ్. ప్రయత్నం మలుపు ఉన్నట్టే లేవా
సూపర్ హిట్ అమ్మాయి ప్రజల గురించి మాట్లాడుతుంది. ఈయన ఎగ్జిబిషన్ అక్కడ నుంచి హిట్ సూపర్ హిట్